Okay, welcome everybody. It's so wonderful to see so many of you online, whether it's a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Nicki Scott, and I have the pleasure of being a Rotary International Director, sitting on the worldwide board, and also leader of the association here in Great Britain and Ireland. And I know that we have a wonderful audience today, some of Rotarians, some of Rotaractors, and some of you who are not yet a Rotarian or Rotaractor, but may well be soon, hopefully. Who knows, you might just be inspired by this seminar to do just that. So we are together today to talk about this very important subject that was brought to us by our global president, Sheikh Mehta, on empowering girls, both locally and globally. And the whole idea is to start working together for greater impact. So we can hopefully take today and this incredible agenda ahead of us to inspire us into action for greater collaboration. It is true that Rotary clubs have been doing much to empower girls directly and indirectly for many years. And we need to enhance this collaboration to get bigger and more sustainable impact for girls and their futures. And luckily, the pandemic in many ways has accelerated our opportunity to do that, because look at how we can come together in this way. But at the same time, the pandemic has actually magnified the problems faced by both girls and boys, and this focus could not be more timely. Empowering girls does not exclude boys, nor women and men. It's truly about inclusivity. We all have a part to play in that. I'm so grateful that Rotarian Jannine Birtwistle accepted my invitation to serve as Empowering Girls Ambassador in these islands, and also Rotaractor Shwetal Shah for being her assistant. Jannine and Shwetal have been actively listening and engaging with others to learn more about the real issues in our very own backyards pertaining to this important topic. Too many girls still face some form of discrimination or disadvantage and have no voice or the confidence to use that voice, suffer from abuse and gender-based violence, and simply do not always have the same opportunities as boys. This seminar launches the Empowering Girls Initiative in Great Britain and Ireland with an incredible lineup of speakers with different backgrounds, passions, and expertise to inspire us all today. So thank you all for making the time to be here and join in this very important seminar. Equality is a basic human right, which is essential for a more peaceful, sustainable, and prosperous world. Empowered girls today are tomorrow's leaders, entrepreneurs, workers, and mothers. So now I'd like to introduce our amazing host, country vile presenter, Paralympian, mentor, and Rotary ambassador. Come on down, Steve Brown.
Well, firstly, thank you, Nicki, and welcome again, everybody. Before I start and share with you, hi there, you can see me now. Thanks, Nicki, so much, and welcome again, everybody. Before I share with you why I was so pleased to say yes when Jannine asked me if I'd host today's seminar, there's always some admin or little bits of housekeeping that people need to be aware of. So let me go through the formalities before I get into the deep end. If you want to use the subtitle facilities during this seminar, what you need to do is click on the live subtitles or live transcript button, and that's on the main toolbar of the Zoom meeting. The seminar is being recorded, and it's going to be available on the Rotary International in Great Britain and Ireland's YouTube channel. And next week, you're all going to receive a link to the recording and some follow-up ideas and resources, which of course you're encouraged to then share in your networks. Just remind, there is a huge audience here, which I'm very pleased to say for this. And so it's great if people could stay muted throughout. It's just, there's always so much background noise and bustle that it can get a little bit distracting. So please do your best to stay muted. We do also have 2 Q&A panel sessions during the course of this. So it's great. If you've got questions, please put them forwards. Very often, the eureka moments for everybody come from the 1 or 2 questions that come in. And the whole experience of today is so tangible on the amount of feedback and questions that come in from people listening. If you can direct them to the participant called questions, that would be fantastic. And then they'll be fed through to me to then include in the panels. There's no formal comfort breaks. We've got 3 hours. And of course, we've got to squeeze as much as we can into those 3 hours. So feel free to take your own breaks at your leisure, but of course, come back as quickly as possible. We don't want you missing out on anything. And I suppose this is fair for me to explain myself a little bit. Some people might be thinking about this Empowering Women seminar to have been hosted by a woman. But I think it's also very important to realise that, well, quite frankly, if it's just women talking to women about these situations, it becomes a circle. And I think it's very important to make sure that men, boys of all ages understand the struggles and the lack of equality in so many cases. And I think that having men as part of this, as Jannine pointed out to me, is a fundamental area of it. I mean, I've got a mum who, when I was younger and growing up, her pay was less than maybe her male counterparts, and that's something that stuck with me. At school, I was very much pushed in the direction of doing woodwork and metal work, whilst maybe some of the females in the class were pushed more towards things like home economics. And I think that that in itself, at the time, maybe I didn't realise quite what was going on. But you look back now and you think that everyone should have had the choice much more to do what they want and not feel pressured into any sort of stereotype. And I've now got nieces as well as nephews, and I'm hoping to have my own children. And I want them to grow up in a world where choice and the opportunities for everybody is equal under any circumstances. And that, for me, needs everybody to understand. It needs everyone to be included. And so to be here as a spokesperson and listen to what the trials and tribulations that women face, and believe you me, we've got a fantastic lineup today of people doing that, to then be able to share that with not just my nieces, but also my nephews and the men just as much as the women in my life, means that everybody can grow, everyone can learn, and it needs men to understand as much as it does women of the trials that are going on. But that will become so much clearer as things go on. But what I'd love to do is go back to Nicki now and let her introduce our first speaker.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, each one of us has a different reason for wanting to make a difference in the lives of young people, no matter what their gender identity. So thanks for sharing with us, Steve, the reasons why this matters to you. And I couldn't agree more that this needs to be full engagement, no matter what background we come from, to solve this very big problem. I wanted to say thanks again to all of you for being here. And I must apologize up front. Unfortunately, I'm being called to another very important meeting being run in parallel to this today. So I won't be able to stay for the duration, but you can be sure I will follow up on the recording. And thank goodness that we are recording this, and it can go even wider than the circle of people already signed in here live. And thank you for making the time to do that. Please stay involved after today, keep in touch with Jannine, share ideas and collaborate. That's what this is all about. I've said it once, I'll say it again, because together we are people of action making a difference and bringing a brighter future for the generations ahead of us. Rotary clubs work with their communities locally and internationally through our Rotary networks. We're 1.4 million worldwide, and we also have a lot of partners and other organizations that we work with who have the same purpose of making a difference in the world, the United Nations being one of them. And the United Nations say empowering girls includes 5 components: their sense of self-worth, their right to have and to determine choices, have access to opportunities and resources, and have power to control their own lives, both within and outside the home, and their ability to influence the direction of social change to create a more just and social and economic order nationally and internationally. So this Rotary Empowering Girls is indeed a global call to action to do just that. And at this point, with no further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce fellow International Director, Elizabeth Usovicz. Elizabeth is over in the United States and was picked to chair this incredible task force for very good reasons, as no doubt will become very evident as Elizabeth takes the microphone. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for being so passionate about this topic. I know this is so close to your heart and you've poured so many hours in, but for good reasons. And it's even allowed you to get up at 3:30 in the morning to join us. So there's a commitment right there. And I'm glad you've got plenty of coffee to hand. Will you please explain to us all why you are so committed to this initiative, why it is relevant to us all, and how by working together, we will have more impact. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so very much, Nicki. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you to you and Jannine and to Steve. Good day to all of you. I really appreciate this opportunity to be with you today for this amazing program and these important conversations on the Rotary Presidential Initiative on Empowering Girls. And as Nicki indicated, I also serve on the board with Nicki, who is amazing. And I have the honor of chairing the Empowering Girls Global Task Force. And the success of this initiative goes way beyond that task force. It's really only possible with the commitment and passion of Rotary members like all of you who are here this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. And as Steve alluded, I am also asked often, why? Why just girls? Why not all children? And of course, all children matter. And in this talk that I'll give briefly this morning about the initiative, hopefully I'll point out some of the issues that are really obstacles for girls and why focusing on them is also beneficial for all children, including boys. You know, the Empowering Girls Initiative has not been designed as a corporate program. It is an initiative that is designed as a club and district level service opportunity. That was President Shaker's intention. So we as a task force, we intentionally designed it so that it would encourage Rotary and Rotaract club members and leaders, as well as their partners in communities, district leaders as well, to participate in service projects that focus on the health, education, safety, well-being, and the economic development of the girls of our world. So it was with that basic purpose in mind that President Shaker formed the Empowering Girls Task Force, and that was formed in September of 2020. And we worked for several months before July 1st of 2021 to develop and launch this initiative. And it's one of 3 presidential initiatives this year, including presidential conferences and Rotary Days of Service. The best news is that Empowering Girls will continue beyond June 30th. President-elect Jennifer Jones has also committed to continuing this very important initiative because Rotarians and Rotaract members around the world have responded so enthusiastically and passionately and compassionately to this initiative. But to give you a global importance of this initiative to Rotary Club members across all geographic regions and all cultures, the task force, we began by identifying some of the challenges that girls face across the world. And as was mentioned earlier, they're numerous, although they may manifest differently in different regions and different cultures. But teen pregnancy, whether that is in a developing country or whether that is through child marriage or through other circumstances, teen pregnancy is a worldwide issue. Access to education, access to reproductive health, nutrition, child care and child nutrition, violence and abuse. These are enormous issues and challenges that girls face in our own countries as well as in other countries. And I'll provide a few examples to you this morning. And if you look at education, education is a barrier to girls succeeding, and it's also the solution to so many other issues that girls face. And according to the World Bank, one of Rotary's partners, 9 in 10 girls globally complete their primary education, but only 3 in 4 girls complete their lower secondary education. And 60 million girls globally have no access to education. That could include girls in our own communities who have either quit school or are out not working or simply out of the loop of economic development and education. In the pandemic, there's no doubt that's had an effect on all children, and including an estimated 850 million girls worldwide whose education has been disrupted. And some of those girls, including those in our own communities, may never get back to school. School closings, the lack of teachers, the lack of educational materials, the lack of digital equity and access to the internet and internet enabling devices, that is also a huge factor in the disruption of girls' education. In some parts of the world, girls have been either required to go to work to supplement a family income. Sometimes they're at home having to do childcare and housework while other members of the family work to make up income in this pandemic environment. And so often, if there are means to send a child to school, it is often a preference for boys. These are factors that are very real for girls all across the world. Another example of providing a context for our club projects regarding empowering girls is this very strong link between menstrual hygiene facilities and education attainment. And over 500 million women and girls, this is hard to believe, but over 500 million women and girls lack access to either the facilities or the products that enable them to manage their own hygiene during menstruation. And lack of facilities in schools means millions of girls cannot achieve an education and economic advancement. Even in North America, in Europe, in countries where we think maybe there isn't such a severe problem, women in certain economic strata are unable to afford the products that they need to manage their own hygiene. So this is an ongoing problem, and it's a prevailing problem around the world. Personal safety for girls is a huge problem. Human trafficking. Global statistics, 70% of human trafficking victims are women, and fully 20% are underage girls, girls under the age of 18. These are significant issues. Abuse and exploitation happen everywhere around the world. This task force has looked at data from around the world, and pretty consistently, the number of girls under the age of 18 who will experience some form of violence or abuse is in the 20th percentile. There is a study that was published by Plan International, the state of girls' rights in the UK for 2019 to 2020. Might be worthwhile taking a look at that study. That indicates that 15% of girls in the UK experience violence or abuse before the age of 16. So this is global, this is local, this is in our communities, whether our community is our city, our town, or it's a country across the world. And in this global context, you can begin to see how significant the need is, how great the potential opportunity is worldwide for us as Rotarians to create positive change for girls that really impacts their lives. And not only their lives, their families' lives, and even has the potential to influence the economy of an entire country. So what we do to enhance the lives of girls, these are no small acts. And this initiative goes beyond creating awareness. It's a call to action to all of us to engage in projects that will enhance the lives of girls. So identifying those projects, getting your club engaged in those projects, is significant. It adds up to our global impact. So with that, when we do these projects, we are giving girls a voice. We're giving them hope. That's such a compassionate way of empowering them. Many of us are parents, grandparents, aunts, or uncles. And for many of you, this work is very personal. It is for me as well. And I so appreciate your efforts in this area. Thank you once again for your dedication and for the honor of including me in your conference today. Thank you very much.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you very much for sharing with us there. And it leaves us in no doubt the importance of taking action together and empowering girls, not just now, but for the future. Some hard-hitting facts there. And of course, if you've got any questions for Elizabeth, please do put them forward for the panel session later. Direct them to the person called Questions. Moving forward, a little bit of background about me. I've been a wheelchair user since I was 24 years old. I fell from a balcony, and in that moment, I was part of a minority group of people living with disabilities. And our next speaker now, Wafula Strike MBE, is also part of that minority group. Anne was born in Kenya, and at the age of 2 was struck with polio, and of course that changed her life forever. And Anne's words here amaze me. Anne says she was disabled by polio, but is empowered by her determination. And when Jannine first asked Anne to talk about empowering girls, Anne agreed to be involved, but only if there was an area of inclusivity as well for as part of a fundamental part of the initiative. And of course, that is so. It's an absolute pleasure to hand over now to a fellow Paralympian and inclusive campaigner, nationally and internationally. We'd love to hear from you, please, Anne. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you for this introduction. And thank you, Rotary, for putting this amazing forum together. Maybe I'll sort of just quickly tell you that yes, I am disabled, but I am a mother, I'm a Paralympian, I'm a motivator. I like to speak, I always say that I've got a big mouth, but I hope that it's a big mouth that makes some sense, because we need that in the community. What I just sort of want to remind us, when we are doing this, is that as a disabled woman, we are always left behind. We are always an afterthought. We are people that everything else is done, and then people think, oh, what about those disabled people? Oh, what about the disabled women? But just let me tell you something. 1 in 5 women live with a disability. 1 in 5 women live with a disability. Anne would not be here if it wasn't for the support or getting encouragement from a man who is my father. My father was very instrumental in supporting me. My father was very instrumental in actually letting me know that it did not matter that I was disabled. It did not matter that I was a woman. What mattered was he was empowering me to go out and face the world. And it was a little bit challenging for him, because growing up in Africa, every woman were discriminated against, or women were marginalized. But it was more, or it was a double jeopardy for a woman with disability. But my father was very instrumental. Now, when we talk about empowering girls or empowering women, we have to also to remember that we don't just want to sort of like take these women and put them in a box, because that that will not be helping or solving any solution or any problems. What we know is that when you're growing up as a young girl, you are quickly put in a box. And what do I mean by this? People will start to say, oh, you are thin, you are tall, you are disabled, you are blonde, you've got blue eyes. And then women will grow up developing certain characters based on what society told them. So instead of teaching our girls to develop the strength and the character that actually outweighs any physical attributes that the girls are often graded on, we sort of like really miss on doing that. So to me, my father knew that, yes, my girl is now disabled. She's disabled by polio, but I'm going to instill something. I'm going to teach her what determination is, so that she will use that determination to empower her. But also another thing that my father said to me, and he actually did, was to give me education. And my father used to say, Anne, I am giving you this education, and this education is a magic key. And he used to say, when you take this magic key, it will help you unlock any door in the world. And that is exactly what I'm doing with that education that my father gave me. You know, and on this slide, I say disability is being invited to, you know, to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. I want to dance. Many disabled girls out there, they want to dance. And what do I mean by this? They just do not want to be brought in the room and sort of just be silent listeners. They want to come and be active participants or active members of communities or members of forums where they can actually raise or voice their opinions. They can raise their concerns. They can bring, you know, a lot of their knowledge or a lot of their aspirations to the table, and they can get that support. When you have a disability, knowing that you're not defined by it is the sweetest feeling. And this takes me back to, you know, what I'm talking about today, of not putting people in boxes. You know, as a woman, I'll say we actually need to reshape our perception on how we view ourselves. We need sort of not just to say that, oh, because I am a woman, I can only do this and I can only do that, you know? And also, you know, when as women with disability, we want sort of just to let people know that this, you know, because we are disabled and because some of us may be vulnerable, that does not mean that we are available for exclusion and discrimination or unequal treatment. No, I think don't just judge us on our disabilities and sort of like want to close the door on us. You know, there's a time I was talking about feminism, and I was asking the feminists, where is my voice? Where is my place on the table of feminism? When people are sort of like discussing about the Me Too campaign, for example, when people are sort of talking about being discriminated or gender-based violence, sexual violence, it is so easy for an able-bodied woman to be, you know, to be believed and get some sort of help than a disabled woman being believed. Why? Because they will probably just sort of, you'll be dismissed and the, you know, people will think she is lying. But also, let me just give you one example. How can, when we talk about women being abused, how can a visually impaired woman, for example, if they went to the court, how will this visually impaired woman be able to recognize their abuser? You know, and sometimes they say, be vigilant, walk and do this, or, you know, look after yourself when you're out like this. How can people with certain disabilities be able to look after themselves and make sure that they're in safe environments? What about those disabled women who are actually being taken advantage of by people who are supposed to care for them? So to me, these are some of the things that as a disabled woman, I don't want to be defined by that disability where I am left in vulnerable situations, you know, where I can easily be taken advantage of. And I would just like to give you, you know, thought of the day. Your value does not decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. As disabled girls and women, society and the world thinks that we actually are good for nothing. And in some communities, disabled people do not even have a voice, or those who have a voice, it is so silent. And that's why I think empowering girls and taking action together, being supported by Rotary, this is going to be a very good initiative. And why is it going to be a good initiative? Because we are just going to change the narrative where we will be telling people that it is not just about, you know, how you look. It's not about where you find yourself, or it's not your background. It's not where you are born or your society or I mean, or your economic status. What matters is that you are a woman, you are a human being, and you need your rights met. Now, what I want to say to you that, yes, I may be disabled, I may be Black, and I may be female, but you know what? The only thing that separates me and so many other disabled women is opportunity. So how do we empower these young girls and young women? We need to give them opportunity. Opportunity is key. If we want to make sure that when we are sort of empowering girls, that we don't leave the disabled ones behind, we need to have those systems in place that are going to be inclusive, systems in place that will actually enable the disabled person to come forward and air their opinions. Thank you so much.
Well, there's a lot of takeaway there for Anne, from Anne, obviously, no doubt about it. And there's time, of course, to ask Anne any sort of questions that you might want to put forward shortly, when we'll also be speaking with Abbie. And let me introduce you to Abbie. Abbie Breakwell, she's the Rotary Young Citizen Willpower Sports Award winner in 2018, and she still continues to go from strength to strength, there's no doubt about it. Abbie's a world-class wheelchair tennis player, and she also does a lot of coaching, and she's a committed voice encouraging all girls to get involved with sport. She's passionate about inclusivity. She wants everyone to be able to take part in sport, and is a massive inclusion ambassador at her college, where she helps encourage everyone to have an equal opportunity, no matter what their ability is. And in 2001, Abbie was voted, believe it or not, to be in the top 10 of most influential people in the UK, in the Shaw's Trust Disability Power 100 list, and has been a massive part of the This Girl Can for many years. Abbie, you've just heard Anne speak there. You have a perspective of someone obviously much younger than maybe what Anne is here, just a difference of opinions. And you've recently completed your secondary education and now heading to university. What would you like to share with us about empowering all girls, no matter what their ability?
So first of all, hi, I'm Abbie, mostly known as a GB wheelchair tennis player. I'm also studying a degree at Loughborough University, like you spoke about, while also balancing my career as a elite wheelchair tennis player. I've been playing wheelchair tennis for about 6 years. However, like many athletes, my life has been a very much roller coaster of successes and failures. But the most important thing that we have to learn is actually we learn more from failures than successes. My parents always knew that I had a disability, but they never treated me differently to my sister Katie. I was always encouraged to join in everything, just like everyone else, even though I was a female and I am disabled. I always loved sports, even though I was a lot slower and clumsier than others, but I never really let it hold me back, and I was always determined to join in and compete. I went to every after-school sports club, becoming a young sports leader in my first year of secondary school, and I helped to set up clubs and also helped to train other students to become leaders, creating PE resources for teachers to help encourage girls and disabled students in sport. Even now, I continue to mentor a group of teenage girls who play wheelchair tennis. While playing hockey at school, the school entered the inter-school competitions, but sadly for me, it was boys only, as there were not enough girls to create a girls section. I continued to train with the boys weekly, understanding that I would not be able to compete. To me, this didn't seem right at all. Being a girl simply is not a reason to be excluded. I've never been one to like the answer no, so I approached my hockey coach and the PE teacher to see if we could get the rule changed. They had always encouraged empowerment and equality, and together we got the rule changed to allowing girls to compete. Over the years, more and more girls joined in, and it taught me to never be afraid to open those doors that are closed and to push down barriers and to challenge stereotypes. People often ask me what made me take up wheelchair tennis or why I chose wheelchair tennis, but the truth is I didn't choose it. I sort of fell into the sport by accident. My school was chosen to supply ball crew members for the British Wheelchair Tennis Championships. I completed the training. However, I was not initially selected as I was too slow and I fell over a lot. I cannot begin to tell you how gutted I felt not to be selected, but I was put on the reserve list, so as others dropped out, I became a ball crew member. The England management officer, Tony Nappett, saw that I wore splints on my legs, and to be honest, you couldn't really miss them. They were massively bright pink. He asked if I would like to come and attend a come and try it session at the weekend. After playing for 2 hours and my hands full of blisters, my wheelchair tennis journey had begun, and I can truly say to this day it has changed my life. Since 2016, I have won over 40 national and international singles and doubles titles in both juniors and adults tournaments, including being the only girl to medal in both singles and doubles in every national school game since the inaugural girls event. In 2019, I was the youngest female player to win the LTA National Tennis Series Women's Singles and Doubles Championship. I have also represented Great Britain at World Teen Cup on multiple occasions, and in 2021 I finished second in the world for the junior girls and maintained British #1 girls for 5 years. I am currently ranked 50th in the world for women's singles and 47th in the world for the women's doubles, and I am 3rd ranked GB woman. Last year I was extremely privileged to feature in All England Lawn Tennis Club Wimbledon Museum in the wheelchair tennis exhibition. It was so surreal to see myself alongside my role models. In my first year of secondary school, I had 2 female PE teachers who were amazingly supportive and introduced me to This Girl Can campaign. This is where my passion for encouraging other participants, especially girls, in sports and coaching was harnessed, and I became an ambassador. I was shocked to learn there were 2 million fewer females participating in sport than men, despite 75% of women saying that they would like to exercise more. Personally, I know how just making a small adaptation can help everyone join in together, and this can be a massive change in attitudes and confidence, but also having a positive impact on both mental and physical health. So part of my role over the years, I've given many talks in schools, colleges, local brownies, rainbows and scouts groups. Even through the pandemic, this continued online. This role then extended again when I started at Loughborough College, where I took on being an inclusion ambassador to ensure college inclusive to all, no matter their ability. Being a disabled female student, it was so extremely important to me to have equality to all. Part of this role, I worked with the LTA, where we created a seated 30-minute workout to ensure no matter their ability, anyone's ability, they could take part in exercise. This was viewed hundreds of times and was used by the students and staff to stay fit during the pandemic. In 2014, my sister introduced me to the Long Eaton Rotary Interact Club, where I quickly got involved. At the time, my sister was the president when I first started and was organising the local community free family funding. To see from all over town, from all different backgrounds, people coming together and having fun and making memories was just fantastic. This helped me realise and appreciate that being different was okay, as different strengths are welcome. I was honoured and proud to be voted by my peers to be the president, where I held the position for 2 years. And during this time, we expanded the Free Family Fun Day with exciting activities such as first aid workshops, disability sports, along with activities that had become firm favourites. During my presidency, we also continued to support the End Polio project. We raised money and planted over 8,000 crocus bulbs to represent each vaccine we paid for. In order for these to all be free, we had to help fundraise events, and this helped me learn vital skills about fundraising that I now apply to my wheelchair tennis career, as I have to raise thousands of pounds each year to allow me to continue training and to travel and compete and to progress to the top and one day to the Paralympic. In 2018, I was recognised for my achievements and was awarded the Rotary Young Citizen Willpower Sports Awards, which was mentioned earlier. I was totally stunned and overwhelmed to be nominated for the awards, let alone go on and win it. I'm incredibly proud to say that I'm a Young Citizen alumni, and that if you guys can take one thing from me today, it is always to strive to break down barriers, to embrace everyone no matter their ability, and to celebrate differences, have self-belief, and most importantly, never give up. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned a lot.
Well, there is plenty there. Thank you very much, Abbie. And questions have come in for both you and for Anne for this short panel session now. And I think I'll start with this question here for you, Abbie, if that's all right. And it comes in from Les Hoskins at the Erith Rotary, excuse me, who's asked, how can we ensure that there's no positive discrimination, isn't it? It's always a balance about getting people included. But what about when it goes too far? And obviously you've done so much in the context of what you've done in inclusivity. I mean, how do you get balance there?
I think the biggest thing is not to treat anyone better than others and to make sure all opportunities are equal. For example, somebody with brittle bones in school, to make sure PE is inclusive to everyone and no one has more of an advantage over the other. When doing a game, for example, with dodgeball, people with brittle bones can't be hit by heavy balls as they're likely to break bones. So a way to make sure this is inclusive and make sure there's no positive discrimination is by getting a soft ball, a foam ball. That way they can be hit by the ball and everyone is using the same equipment while also maintaining the exact same rules. It's not necessarily about creating a wheelchair section for another and a non-disabled section for another person. It's about merging the two and actually thinking outside the box sometimes to think, what can we do to make everyone join in together?
Yeah, it makes sense. You know, it's for me, again, from a wheelchair perspective, it's always tricky to find that balance between inclusivity and keeping it maybe quite competitive and also giving everyone a chance. I mean, Anne, you come from the same ilk in terms of Paralympics and that kind of thing. How do you feel about that balance with making things inclusive but still competitive?
I think, you know, maybe we will start with acknowledging that people are so different, and we sort of like, we are so diverse or so unique in our own ways. So I think it's sort of like just having more opportunities, creating more opportunities, and you know, making facilities more inclusive. To me, I think, you know, inclusive in a way that anybody, no matter the disability or no matter the, you know, where you're coming from, you are able to afford to access a venue. You are able to, you know, to pay, and it's cost effective. You are able to go there and participate or play sport. That is very important. But also, you know, another thing is just to encourage, you know, the disabled people that there is something that they can do, you know, and they don't have to do it at a high level. You know what, Steve and Abbie, not every disabled person playing sport will be a Paralympian. So I think it's sort of like really just finding, you know, the positives that people can get from accessing sport.
Yeah, it's very much about the enjoyment first, isn't it? It's the same as able-bodied children, whether it's football or swimming or hockey. Enjoyment has to be first, and feeling part of that team environment and being part of something bigger than just you. And if you've got the ability to go further with it, and you want to, of course, it's got to be a want as well. And I know that, Anne, you're going to be with us a little bit later, but it's just one more for you, Abbie, and that's from Roy in Manchester, and he's asking, what can we specifically do here in Great Britain, in Ireland, to support and empower young people like yourself?
To be honest, there are many ways to be able to do that. And like I said earlier, a lot of the time we get split into two different groups of how to do things. And one of the biggest things I've actually learned is, for example, there were two twins that I went to wheelchair basketball with. And one twin had a disability and one didn't. And that can cause a huge amount of strain on a family, as you're not able to join in a lot of those activities that one child is able to do and not the other. So actually finding something for them to have in common and them to do together was massively important. And actually by allowing people to play wheelchair basketball that not only are disabled, but everyone who's not disabled as well, allowed the brothers to have that connection that they may not have been able to have beforehand, and allowed them to be on an equal playing field, because even if you're standing up, you can still sit down in a wheelchair and have a go. I mean, for example, for me, I play in the local league for tennis against people who are standing up, and I'm still in a wheelchair. We still follow all the same rules. The only difference is that I get 2 bounces because I'm a little bit slower pushing compared to people who are running.
Well,
but it's just one of the main things is to allow people to have a go.
No, entirely right. Inclusivity, letting people work within their own abilities, but also, like you say, making sure that it doesn't mean that it's one game for you and another game for us. It's about that cross-pollination, everyone working together. And Abbie, I know that you're a busy lady and you've got to shoot off, but thank you so much for your time and input this morning. It's great to hear from your perspective. And Anne, you're with us all the way through things today, and you're going to be with us for the panel later as well, I believe. So that's fantastic. Good luck with everything, Abbie, and we'll leave you to keep on with your busy life. Rotary is committed to offering all young people opportunities to unlock their potential and develop their skills and broaden their horizons. Two such initiatives are Rotary Kids, and that's for 7 to 12-year-olds, and then Interact is for ages between 12 and 18. They both offer chances for young people to make a difference in their community and to discover the power of volunteering and social action, and just to make sure they have fun while they're doing it. And you can learn more about those sort of opportunities at rotarygbi.org. And there's a link there that you can follow to find out a little bit more about that. But let's hear what some of the interactors and Rotakids have to say about empowering girls.
I think that equality should be tolerated in society because we can't decide our ethnicity, gender or our sexuality, and I also feel that boys and girls should not be separated because of their gender, and they should not be made to feel uncomfortable just because of who they are.
In Rotary Interact, we're strong believers in equality, and this is why every time we do a project we make sure that we suit everyone's interests. Such as the photo shoots that we've been doing over the past couple of years, we've adapted them to make sure we conduct workshops that include everyone. So instead of just doing modelling, we did photography and fashion design, set design and everything to make sure that everyone was included.
I think everyone should be treated the same and get the same opportunities. One of the biggest opportunities I've had is working with the Alexander McQueen team. This was an amazing experience for myself and others, and this was through Rotary. This has shown me what my future can hold for me, and it's amazing.
Opportunity and interact is swimming lessons, which mean not just to have fun, but to have as a skill which could be life-saving. I've also been helping Rotary with their food bank, which has given hope and help, but also the opportunity to know a community cares. It's shown me that to care empowers others in a community, and that's not based on gender, wealth or our place in society.
I strongly believe that everyone should have equal rights and opportunities regardless of their age, gender, ethnicity or sexuality. I believe this because why should anyone be treated differently because of something they can't control? I think the job should not be labelled male or female suited because people are being deprived of opportunities because of the pressure of society. Everyone should be treated equally.
When I grow up, I want to be an architect, but today it's seen as a man's job because you don't see a lot of women being architects or builders or firefighters. And I think it's quite unfair, and I think there should be equal opportunities for everyone.
At my school, there isn't a fully female sports team. Some girls get to do random football matches or netball matches. The boys both have 2 full football and rugby teams. The girls at my school, 2 of them are currently trying to set up a rugby team for the girls, as the main sport we mostly get to play is netball, but not many girls actually enjoy that, and we want a more hands-on sport at my school.
I believe in inequality that rugby is not just a man's sport, it's for girls too.
I think everyone should be treated equally. We're all human, we all bleed the same. Why should we accept inequality? Why should we accept discriminatory behaviour? No one should get discriminated against, whether it's because of your age, your gender, your race, your ability, your sexuality. No one should be discriminated against. It's the 21st century. We shouldn't be basing our judgments off of social norms and gender norms from years ago. Like, we need to look into the future and provide equality for everyone.
Well, there is plenty in that video to take away, isn't there? But what we've got here now is we've got Jess and Lauren, and also from the Queen Elizabeth Sixth Form College, we've also got Nancy, who is the Interact coordinator at the college. And I suppose I want to start with you, Jess, if that's okay. Can I ask why you joined the Interact programme in the first place?
I joined Interact for two main reasons. The first being that it provides so many opportunities for me. I get to meet new people, develop new skills and have fun. And secondly, I get to do this whilst helping people in my local community and worldwide and making a positive change. It's simply a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Well, do you know what? I couldn't agree more. And of course, Lauren, heard from you there as well. Why do you think empowering girls is so important?
We must remember that females make up to 50% of the population. Discrimination has no place in the 21st century. Every girl has the right to go to school, stay safe from violence, access health services, and fully participate in her community. Every girl has the right to be in charge of her future and her fate and not have it dictated to her. I believe people who have the ability to drive change have the obligation to protect each girl's rights and promote each girl's well-being, no matter what level. We all have a responsibility.
You know, it's interesting to hear your opinions and your attitude towards it all. But of course, a massive part of it all was Nancy coordinating it all. And Nancy, before you'll leave us, I believe there's a message you have from all of the interactors at the school.
Yeah, the students have been absolutely fantastic in everything that they've actually done. As you saw from the last two slides, they've supported a huge number of different projects, putting action in place. The big thing that they actually want to tell everybody is that they recognise they can't change the world overnight. They absolutely understand that, but what they can do is they can change the world of one person, and they want everybody to take that. Everybody can make a difference. Everybody can change the world of one person. But fundamentally, their thought is education is so powerful. Nelson Mandela once said that education was the most powerful weapon to change the world, and that's what we're believing in. And they're trying to instill education in the UK and overseas and enable those girls to then become empowered women, and it's something we can all support.
Yeah, it certainly is. And thank you all three of you for taking the time and joining us. And of course, everyone from Wales that we heard in the video there. Listening to young people is so important. They are the future and the voice of what is happening out there and what we need to do to empower girls and to give everyone equal opportunities and choices. Doing things to empower girls and women does not have to be time-consuming, costly, or in no way a complex project. Let me share with you a simple, practical project called the Personal Care Pantry, recently launched by the Rotaract Club of Birmingham, with a little financial support from the Rotary clubs in the area.
Hi, I'm Cathleen. I would like to talk to you today about the Personal Care Pantry, which is a project that was launched by my club, the Rotaract Club of Birmingham. But I would say that its ongoing success is a testament to collaboration between Rotary and Rotaract within our district, within the West Midlands. So the Personal Care Pantry was launched in response to a desire on the part of Rotaract to support charities that work to uphold women's rights and promote women's life chances, particularly those of women who have been victims of domestic abuse. And we feel that these charities are doing work that is informed by both the aims and principles of the Empowering Girls Initiative. So as a club, we are not cash rich, and we have quite limited funds, but also we don't really feel that we have the resources to launch, to plan, or indeed execute large-scale fundraisers. So we were actually looking to do something a little bit more small scale and of a more practical nature. Unfortunately, when we were researching charities supporting women, we found that two charities working with victims of domestic abuse, ANAWIM, which is a women's centre, and also Birmingham and Solihull Women's Aid, who run helplines but mainly run a refuge for women who've managed to escape from an abusive partner. They were asking for donations of toiletries and period products. So immediately we recognised that this was an unmet need that we actually, to which we were very well placed to respond. And we therefore withdrew £30 from our club funds, and we used that £30 to buy our first batch, our trial batch, for the personal care pantry. And we identified 10 categories of personal care items, including shampoo and conditioner, tampons, deodorant, toothbrushes and toothpaste, soap, moisturisers for face and body, for example, that will be used to stock the pantry. And when I speak about a trial batch, that is equivalent to a full set of toiletries, a full set of personal care products for free women. And we did a very successful bargain hunting shop, aiming to spend roughly £1 or less on each individual item. And we were quite proud of our efforts, actually, because we managed to secure items that would be tailored to the needs of individuals with sensitive skin within each of the applicable categories. And also we did manage to buy quite a broad range of vegan products. And overall, we were of the opinion that the items that we had purchased, whilst they were extremely affordable, they were of a high quality that we would have been happy to use ourselves, or we would have been happy to buy on behalf of friends or family. So following the successful trial, we reached out to Rotary clubs within the district and began requesting donations from them. So to date, we have had a total of £120 donated, and consequently the donations, in addition to our trial batch, we now have given over 150 individual items to Anawim and Birmingham and Solihull Women's Aid. So going forward, we're going to approach more clubs within the district and hopefully secure more donations, but it's going to be very much an ongoing project, and we hope to make many more donations to the charities that we have chosen to support in the future.
Thank you very much there, Cathleen, and we'll see you again later in the panel session. And please remember to put any questions for Cathleen and anybody else to the participant called questions. There have been a few people mentioning about the speed of that last video that we showed and how many bullet points were on there to be read. Don't worry, don't fret, that's all going to be put into the package that's going to be sent out to you later, so you can read through those at your own leisure. What was being mentioned there about personal care is not something that we necessarily think about for those receiving these packages at the distressing times of their life, and they really appreciate them. They include menstrual products that we all know are specifically needed by people who menstruate. And let's be honest about it, it's not something we talk generally about, is it? But maybe we should. Education and understanding around all aspects of menstrual health is needed as much for boys and men as it is by the girls and women. We do know that period poverty is increasing as one of the many impacts of COVID in our own communities and overseas. And our next speaker is from the Rotary Action Group for Menstrual Health and Hygiene, a Rotary Action Group that is independent, really, and Rotary affiliated group made of Rotarians and others around the world who are experts in this particular field. The early days of the pandemic, Rotarian Sharmila Nagarajan, excuse me, sorry there.
It's all right.
Just from London, and is part of this group of Rotarians that are concerned about it. And I'd like it if you could tell us a little bit more, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Steve. Yes, we do need to educate boys as well in periods. So empowering girls and period poverty. Period poverty actually exists in every corner of the world. Girls and women, they suffer from this period poverty. And this is due to the lack of access to sanitary products due to financial constraints And it's estimated that currently around 137,000 children across the UK alone have missed school days due to period poverty. So if you think about it, that's quite a lot of girls who have missed school because of periods. And previously across in the UK, we had a 5% VAT that was added to sanitary products. That's including tampons, pads, and towels, which is called the tampon tax. And that has been abolished for the sanitary products from 1st of January last year. So that's quite something for us because we don't have to pay taxes on sanitary products. And 1 in 10 girls in the UK are not able to afford to buy sanitary products. And this affects their self-esteem, education, and overall quality of life. And if we can get rid of this, it will obviously help a lot of girls back to school. And eliminating period poverty has often been a focus of many non-profit organizations and the UK government. Having access to period poverty enables girls to get back to school and women back to work. They don't need to skip school, work, and they will have happy periods. And using sustainable products like reusable sanitary napkins and menstrual cup helps to save the environment. And save the environment means we save tons of waste, which means a significant impact on the environment. Reusable napkins do have a lifespan for around 3 years, and menstrual cup is around 7 to 10 years. And using menstrual cup will likely need for someone who's menstruating on an average between 4 to 10 cups in their lifetime. And this keeps the cost and it's healthier. Sanitary napkins, as we know, or if some of you may know, is 90% plastic. And plastic is not environmentally friendly. And this kills a lot of the seabirds, hundreds, thousands of sea mammals, marine turtles, and fish each year. And plastic remains in our ecosystem for many years. And this obviously affects the sea creatures on a daily basis. And they take thousands of years to compose in the landfill or in the ocean. We also need to educate our young boys, Steve, as you mentioned, about period products and about periods too. Obviously, we need to talk about it, and together we will be able to make the difference. We need to talk about periods openly. We need to break the silence. And with the Rotary Action Group for Menstrual Health and Hygiene, we do cover the 7 areas of focus, which is peace building and conflict prevention, disease prevention and treatment, water, sanitation and hygiene, maternal, child and health, basic education and literacy, community economic development, and the environment. And together we should be able to break the silence, talk about it, and do join us. We do have a coffee and a chat session for period poverty, menstrual health and hygiene on Thursday, 26th of May between 6 to 7 p.m. UK time. That's all from me. Thank you very much. Over to you, Steve.
Well, thank you very much. There's a date for your diary there, Thursday, the 26th of May. Make sure you're there for that coffee. It's a bit of a gear change now, something completely different. And it's time now to talk about STEM. Now, STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering and Mathematics. And it's obviously a very integral part of our lives, although maybe not always realised as that. Take, for instance, my chair. My wheelchair is fundamental to my life. I couldn't be without it. But then I've also got ones that maybe I use on rougher terrain whilst filming with Country File. And of course, my sports chair when I was playing wheelchair rugby. And all of these have been designed by engineers. And of course, our Zoom meeting today has only been made possible because of those areas of STEM. So the scope of it is absolutely enormous. But it's amazing to think that according to the Women in STEM's website, only 24% of the workforce are women. And that's a huge gap, isn't it, of course? And things like that don't always happen by chance. Too many girls are held back by discrimination or bias or even social norms and the expectations that are maybe put upon them. And of course, this is also a reflection of the education that they receive and the subjects that maybe they actually take, as I was mentioning earlier in my opening statement about how maybe women and girls at my school were pushed in one direction whilst men in another. And girls are underrepresented in those areas. And this is a deep-rooted problem. We need to break this cycle. Girls are often brought up to believe that STEM and the subjects around it are really quite masculine topics. And the female ability in these fields historically aren't always seen. This can undermine, obviously, girls' confidence and their interests and willing to engage in STEM subjects. And today we're going to hear from several young people who are determined to change that system. And first up is Vanessa Madu, who is currently an undergraduate student in mathematics at the Imperial College London, specialising in mathematical physics. Her personal journey has seen her really quite committed to helping STEM to become a more diverse environment. And for her work in social engagement, she's received several awards, including being named one of the UK's top 10 rare rising stars. The Woman of the Future Star. As a young woman, she was awarded that as well at the college. And Vanessa's not able to join us live today, but this is a little video that she's recorded.
So hi, my name is Vanessa, and a little bit about me. I am a mathematics student at Imperial College London, and part of what makes my story so interesting and what I hope to use to inspire some of you is that in my not so distant past, I was, like most people, a subscriber to the idea that mathematics was one of the most potent forms of cruel and unusual punishment, especially when I was in school. When I didn't understand it, I found it was tedious, frustrating and pointless chasing of X and Y. And when I eventually did and found my gift for numbers, I found that it then became grounds for mockery and challenges to justify my presence as a woman mathematician beyond my ability to make the proof look pretty. So why is all this empowering women business important? Why should a woman be able to be a mathematician? Well, in general, I can't answer that, but I can tell you why I should be able to. I love maths. I think it's absolutely magical. It applies to the world so beautifully, and for those who see it this way, it isn't about just chasing X and Y, but instead working out how fast our universe is expanding, or working out how much I weigh on Jupiter. And it's amazing to me that without being there with a radar gun or with a weighing scale, it's possible for us to know these things. And I think that anyone who finds this exciting deserves the opportunity to be a mathematician. But unfortunately, those opportunities are not always there. For me, that looked like my school not being able to offer me a full further maths A-level, a subject that I needed in order to pursue a degree level mathematics. But considering I'm studying mathematics at university, something must have happened. Well, inspiration did. Seeing some of the contributions that amazing women mathematicians have made, especially those like Katherine Johnson, who triumphed against incredible adversity, inspired me to fight for the passion that I had. Inspiration is what made me persevere through the lack of opportunity and to create that for myself. They couldn't offer me enough classes for a full further maths A-level, so I taught myself. The thing is, not all of us can create opportunities, but a lot of us can either inspire or create or lend platforms for others to be able to. The mission of making STEM a more diverse place is such a multifaceted one. And opportunities for exposure and learning are so important, but it is crucial to not forget the power of lighting a spark in someone. So what am I doing? Well, as a mathematician who also happens to be a woman, my role is twofold. Go to schools and talk about the amazing maths I've been able to do and the really interesting things I've been able to find out and explain. Or do academic talks to demonstrate just how powerful my ability to discover and ask questions is, and then create platforms for women in other areas of STEM to do just the same. So what can you do? Well, for those of you who happen to be women and scientists or technologists or engineers or mathematicians, the best thing that you can do in order to inspire and empower other girls to join you is to show us your science, show us your tech, show us your engineering, show us your maths. And for those of you in the position of hosting conferences, talks, seminars, events, school assemblies, anything of the like, make a point of inviting women to be speakers. Help to create platforms for women to be able to inspire. And hopefully that way we'll have a new generation of women to make discoveries, propose solutions, and revolutionize our understanding of the world.
Wow, lots of very strong messages there from Vanessa, and that leads me to introduce another powerful and impactful voice for girls in STEM. Rotaract Shwetal Shah is the Assistant Empowering Girls Ambassador for Rotary here in Great Britain and Ireland, and she's currently working on the Mars Inclusive Innovation Programme, sourcing emerging tech companies to test and learn new routes to market. Shwetal's committed to helping make the world fairer and more equal, and her drive and passion and action has seen her organising free public science lectures, making documentaries on women in tech, and she's been part of the Young Task Force Programmes Committee for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meetings in 2018, volunteer with Peace Jam, part of Y7 2021, the official youth engagement programme for the G7, and so much more. Shwetal's won multiple awards, recognition including being named the UN Power Woman Champion for Change. Shwetal.
Thank you so much, Steve. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today and listening to so many amazing women who've spoken about their experiences before me. Just going back to some of the statistics that Steve mentioned earlier when he introduced STEM, I guess and also hearing about experiences that Vanessa shared with us, where she had to teach herself applied mathematics because the opportunity wasn't available to her through the education system. And the reality that I have personally seen repeatedly for girls and women in STEM in my own studies and in my own work always made me think and question, what can I do to change these statistics? And so I started organizing free public science lectures, inviting women scientists to talk about their research across London and show to the general public that we do have more Marie Curies as well. And then I made a documentary on women in tech, just to, I guess, destigmatize what careers in tech look like. And so this short film that I've made, it features 7 women from different backgrounds and upbringings and their journeys into the very male-dominated world of science, technology, engineering, and math. Whilst we don't have enough time today for me to show you my entire feature-length film, but I'm going to put the link in the chat box, and I would love for all of you to go and see this documentary later on and be inspired by these women. In this documentary, the women explain how their efforts and their company's efforts are helping achieve a better gender balance, something which has sadly been lost in the last 2 decades. Women have often been behind the scenes in making history, but rarely at the forefront. Women were very influential by giving the world the framework of programming languages. Ada Lovelace, for those of you who don't know, was the very first woman programmer from England. Today we have Wi-Fi, which was also created by a female, Heidi Lamar. For those of you who don't know, she was a famous Austrian actress, but she was also an inventor and scientist who gave us Wi-Fi that we use today. Women also helped save men in the battlefield. And due to their technical prowess, they helped send rockets into space. I saw that Jannine put a link to Katherine Johnson's documentary. She was an instrumental mathematician working in NASA who helped us send men to the moon. And we have very few Nobel Prizes in scientific research. Yet, somewhere along the lines, many of their contributions were forgotten and all too often not even recognized in the first place. And so I wanted to create a documentary where we start recognizing more women in today's world and society and give them the platform to share their stories to inspire other women and girls and boys to get into tech. Some of these women have worked hard, from leading a £7 million budget set by the Mayor of London to develop digital skills for young people in London, or they've worked in the gaming industries after being homeschooled for 13 years in different parts of the world.
If you tell somebody that maths is hard, then you're just gonna engrave it in their brain, and they're always gonna think, oh, you know what, maths is hard. Maths is not hard, maths is fun. It's just if somebody convinces you that this is hard, and that's where the problem. So I think as educators, we have kind of a greater responsibility. So I think for all girls, no matter where they're from and where they live, they'll always have people in their lives who will influence them and will be telling them what they should or shouldn't be doing, how they should be behaving, what they should do with their lives. I think it's really important for girls to think about what they actually want and what drives and inspires them.
You learn how to become an expert in just one thing. That will give you the skill on how to transfer that knowledge of depth into any topic that you then choose to love at a later date.
You know, go to events. Even if you can't, go online. There's so many support groups, and there are people that genuinely want to help. Find mentors and don't be afraid to ask. People are very willing.
My advice would be just to be as well-rounded as possible. Like, yes, stick to one thing that you really love, because that niche is going to be important, but try and have skills in all of the different sectors as well. So for example, crowdfunding, I came into it with my marketing and communications strong skill set, but also I need to know about finance, I need to know about business, I need to know about tech and video making, and reading up and practicing on all of those different things makes me a stronger crowdfunding consultant than someone that's just coming in with one skill set.
Have a vision for yourself and follow that vision, and look, and you will fall. And you will fall again, and maybe you will fall one more time, but at the end, you'll get there, and it feels really good to get where you want it to be.
I hope that that film inspired you to then go and watch the full version later on. The reason why I shared this film was when Jannine asked me to talk about my experiences working in tech. I thought that when we have this event, and there'll be audiences in this room with varied backgrounds, working in education, in business, in policy making, activism, working in tech, philanthropy, volunteering, I wanted to show this film so that you could then take this story and share it with many young girls or women in your lives, and you can collectively empower them by their stories. And so because we have a varied audience in the room today, like Vanessa, I too want to share 5 ideas that I hope that you will take back with you after today's session, and we can all help fix, I guess, the gender imbalance or the diversity imbalance that we see in the field of STEM today. So, first one, how do we help us fix the shortage of STEM teachers, especially in rural communities? If you have a background in tech, or if you're an industrialist working in this sector, why don't you go and maybe give guest lectures across rural communities in the UK? Point number 2, why can't we start including more women in classroom textbooks? Like I said, I wanted to solve the fact that all of us today still know Marie Curie as one of the leading scientists, but she lived 100 years ago. And we need to be including more relevant scientists from today's world in classroom textbooks. Number 3, invite corporates to work with local schools and adopt a local school and host young women to see STEM in action in the workplace. Number 4, encourage more open conversation between technologists and school students. This could be done online through Twitter, or it could be done through just volunteering and going and speaking to schools at your Rotary clubs, inviting scientists and hosting sessions where you invite school students to listen to these technologists and scientists and learn from them how they broke into the careers that they're in. Number 5, buy your own kids or your grandkids science kits, run experiments with them and have fun. And the last thing that I want to share is, and I'll put the link in the chat box. Last year, I started an initiative where we are encouraging Rotary clubs to give between £100 to £200 in grants to young people to work on social action projects. You could use some of this funding and empower girls and young people to want to work in STEM by giving them grants to go and experiment and run social action projects, invite scientists to go to their school and give lectures. So that could be a really good practical way of taking all of this that you learned today and applying it back through your Rotary clubs into your local communities. And so, as we know that girls and women are key players to shape solutions for our future. So why can't we all work together to make it agenda now instead of agenda 2030? And now I just want to go to our next speaker. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here with us today, but we have a video, an inspirational story of a 14-year-old Abbie, who I actually met a few years ago when she invited me to talk to one of her sessions and workshops that she was running. Abbie started coding at the age of 7, and she's very passionate about robotics. She's determined to continue creating opportunities for underserved girls in London, areas around London, with more financial support to be able to expand it. She does all of this herself with the support of her mom, and they're determined to carry this on even during lockdown, and have worked hard to continue empowering girls by adapting the workshops that she runs in person through online delivery, making and sending all of the necessary parts to the online attendees in advance, and then they take them through how do you make robots.
I'm Abbie. I'm 13 and I live in London with my mum and dad. I've been coding since I was 7 and I'm passionate about robotics. In 2018, only 17% of people working in tech in Europe were women. I've decided to make it my mission to get other girls like me interested in tech. This is my story. I've definitely always enjoyed making things because I remember when I was younger, I was really into Legos and making objects out of cardboard and like cereal boxes. But I guess where my passion for robotics and coding in general started was when I went to a club called Coder Dojo, and that introduced me to building robots. It was really hands-on, which was really, really cool. It's also really welcoming and everyone's just really kind as well. I definitely think that it was an important moment, like going to a Coder Dojo, because I think that's where it all started. Being able to know that I can code what I've made and bring it to life, the thought of that is even more exciting.
So this is one of my projects which I think is the coolest one I've ever made. So the first thing is this Raspberry Pi, and I coded this using Python.
Hello, welcome. What would you like me to do?
The voice-tronic robot was my second robot that I had built and had entered it for Collis Projects UK. I remember driving to the event, I was like, oh my gosh, imagine if I won that, that'd be awesome. Obviously I didn't think I was going to win.
The winner of the hardware category for Collis Projects UK is... It's the voice-tronic bot that Coder Dojo have!
It was a really big moment for me, winning that competition, to kind of boost like my tech interest and kind of journey. When they called out my name and the voice-tronic robot, I was just so happy. Every now and again I look up at it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's one of my favourite robots. In coding and robotics, I'd found something I really loved and wanted to share it with my friends. I wanted to see more girls like me giving it a go. And so, when I was 10, I decided to set up Girls into Coding, an organisation to encourage more girls to get involved in tech. I think we have a few more participants, so thank you Sophia and Megan for turning your cameras on. When we started off, we were only having around 15 to 20 people, but now we've scaled up. We've had around 300 to 400 girls who have walked in the door, which is a really big number when you think about it. By getting girls into tech early, I hope that we can begin to close the gender gap that exists in the wider industry. I've come a long way since my first coded dojo, age 7. It catapulted me into my tech journey. I've loved every minute of it and can't wait to see what's around the corner.
Well, thank you, Shwetal. And it just goes to show what can happen when girls and boys are supported and encouraged. They really do have the potential to change the world. And when boys and girls are worked together and they are educated together, particularly in areas of STEM, it really opens everybody's eyes to what everyone, irrespective of gender, can achieve. And the Rotary clubs organise technology tournaments for 12 to 18-year-olds and also junior tournaments for 7 to 11-year-olds. There'll be a link in the chat to a YouTube channel so you can see exactly what those tournaments are about and how much fun they are. Now let's move on to polio eradication and gender equality, or inequality, should I say. Some of you here today may not realise that it was Rotary's dream back in 1985 to rid the world of the life-threatening and disability virus, which is caused by the incurable polio disease. And we haven't got time to talk about that dream in too much detail today, but I know Jannine would be very happy to talk to you all about it if we had a little bit more time. We do, however, have time to share this very informative video from the World Health Organization. So let's have a look at that now.
Gender roles, norms, and relations, and gender inequality affect people's health around the world. Gender refers to the socially constructed roles, norms, behaviors, and opportunities that the society considers appropriate for women, girls, boys and men, and people with diverse gender identities. Gender varies from society to society and can be changed. Gender interacts with, but is different from biological sex. Gender also doesn't only mean women or women's issues. Just like age, ethnicity, or economic status, gender affects our access to services, resources, and what challenges and opportunities we might have, including our access to vaccination. In polio eradication, we see gender impacts in different ways. Girls and boys do not always benefit equally from vaccinations. In some societies, boys are valued more than girls. They get better access to food and health services, including vaccination. In some places, false rumors about the polio vaccine mean that boys are not vaccinated, as families are more worried about their well-being, and only give vaccines to girls. We try to understand and address local norms and roles related to gender, so we can ensure we reach all boys and girls with life-saving vaccines. In some places, it is not easy for women to access healthcare with children because they lack resources like money, transportation, or time, or because they are not allowed to leave the home. In many countries, literacy rates are lower among women than among men, which also impacts access to health information and services. The power to make decisions, such as whether or not to vaccinate children, is also influenced by gender roles and norms. The Global Polio Eradication Initiative identifies and addresses gender-related barriers to immunization, communication, and disease surveillance to make sure we reach every last child with vaccines. We look at data on children's vaccination status to track any differences between the number of girls and boys being immunized, so we can act on any discrepancies. We monitor data to ensure that paralysis in girls and boys is reported with the same timeliness. We work to make sure that women participate equally and meaningfully in all vaccination activities, and that everyone working to eradicate polio has a safe and respectful work environment. Increasing women's participation in polio eradication is the right thing to do, and the smart thing to do. Female frontline workers help build trust in their communities. They can enter households in more conservative areas where men are not allowed to interact with women alone. Women can educate other women about issues affecting their own health and their children's health, like the benefits of exclusive breastfeeding, So the benefits go beyond polio eradication. Making gender equality the heart of our program results in more children, both girls and boys, being vaccinated, and brings us closer to achieving a polio-free world. Gender equality benefits everyone, and it is everyone's business.
Let's just repeat those last words there. Gender equality benefits everyone, and it's everyone's business. You know, they're hard words, aren't they? And polio and COVID are each classified as a public health emergency of international concern, and that's the very highest level of alarm under international law. COVID has impacted people of all ages and then genders across the world, but global studies show that women and girls are at greater risk of health, social, economic and security impact. And one of those reports back in 2020 was the United Nations policy brief on the impact of COVID on women. And this report highlighted that the impact of COVID-19 are exacerbated for women and girls simply by the virtue of their sex. It concludes that putting women and girls at the centre of economies will fundamentally drive better and more sustainable development outcomes for all, support a more rapid recovery and place us back on a footing to achieve a sustainable development goals. And sadly, it's not always possible, and conflict is another area that makes a huge difference to this. And girls and women have already said that they find themselves in these areas. But I'm honoured to introduce our next speaker, Miss Hasina Safi. Hasina is a human rights activist and former politician in Afghanistan, and now lives in England following last year's Taliban takeover. Her advocacy for women's rights began over 20 years ago, and at the age of 15, she is a former director of Afghan Women's Network, has worked in women's development programs with Afghan civil society, international organisations and the UN agencies. She's represented civil society and Afghan women in national, regional and international movements. A lot there. And of course, she's going to be with us for the panel later. So direct any questions you have to the person. Questions. Let's now welcome Hasina.
Thank you very much, Steve. I would like to first thank Rotary International, Eve from the Circle NGO, Rotary International Rotarians, and also the leadership for the opportunity with this very relevant topic of the situation of Afghanistan empowering women to share as someone who has struggled whole her life for women empowerment, specifically for Afghan women empowerment, my views, and also how to connect as a woman to the women around the world. That today, me sitting in the UK, talking to you is one of the examples of solidarity, one of the examples of sisterhood of the international sisters, British sisters, who has supported not only me, but many other women who had been at very, very unexpected life and death risk on 15th of August. I would like to first congratulate Rotary International for the topic of empowering girls and the initiative of localization, which has been one of the very, very relevant topics in the Asian underdevelopment country or least development countries, more specifically talking even in Afghanistan as well. I would like to start with one statement which I all the time talk as a woman, is it's a world of challenges, it's a world of hope. It's a world of challenges because nothing is impossible. It's a world of hope because the more you face challenges, the more you fail down, it gives you power and strength. So basically, connecting it to the topic today, I believe education is the basis to all the impossibles to make it possible. The more you educate, the more you learn, the more you understand, the more you find out that you need more and more to know. Afghanistan as a country, underdevelopment country, in the last 2 decades, there has been a lot of initiatives, different initiatives by international community supporting the government of Afghanistan for the education of girls. More than 29% of girls were in school. They started after the first collapse of Taliban in 1996, 1995, when the Taliban took over for the first time. They made all the girls sit at home, which means that those girls who were in grade 6, when they sat for 6 years at home, they became illiterate again. Those girls who were in the first year of medical university for 6 years, they never could be doctors. Those who were in the engineering, in the teaching, in architecture, in media, they all sat back. So what happened in 2002 after the collapse of Taliban, the first round, with the support of international community, in commitment, in dedication of the women in Afghanistan, along with the network and coordination of the international sisters from different parts of the world, those girls who were hidden at home with a fear not to go to school, they came out. Now, they went to school. The 29% of female education, which is indicated in most of the international reports, it is shown was not very easy. It started from fear because girls thought that if they go to school, they will be beaten. Girls thought that if they go to school, they will be put acid on their faces. But with all those challenges, they went. Today, not today, unfortunately, because today it's again the time of 26 years back, physically. But quality-wise, today, Afghan women are ready as a human capital, as a human resource capital to invest for the future of Afghan women, no matter if they are out of their country after the disastrous and unexpected situation of takeover by Taliban on 15th of August. With the numbers which increased as 29%, and also physically, if you see the reports, there were many challenges. There were many challenges because still the women could not go to school because of the harassment, because of the abuses, because of the traditional society, because of lack of quality education, because of lack of female teachers. These were the challenges which were overcome partially in the last 20 years. In 2020 and 2021, until the fall of the government, the Ministry of Education had moved towards thinking in shaping a quality education, not only for girls, but for the boys as well, because the achievements that the women of Afghanistan did at all levels, starting from awareness to participation, to meaningful participation, into leadership, it was not only their efforts, but it was equivalently a backup support of their fathers, their husbands, their brothers, and their male friends. What I would like to state in here is that we had a very famous saying in Afghanistan that men of quality. Who are men of quality? Men of quality are the men who stand with pride with their sisters, with their daughters, with their wives, with their mothers. They do not feel ashamed because of the traditional and social situation, which is sometimes imposed on them. The point which I would like to state in here is that there are many men of quality around the world. And the message that I want to give it to them is to stand as a backup for them. Leave the women lead. Leave the women lead, because they have the power, they have the talent, they have the commitment and dedication. So that is how you can be a champion of women's rights in a quality manner. I think this is a time to also more and more think, listening to all the brilliant speakers today, to youth, to experience, what is it that we are all lacking in different parts of the world? I think that is quality. We are very good with graphs. We are very beautiful with presentations. We are very beautiful with videos. But why still there is a misconnection of education with humanity? So there are specifically some recommendations which I would like to give for the future of the education system all around the world, and then more specifically to the underdeveloped countries, specifically about Afghanistan. The first thing is that we have to hear, we have to listen to the definitions of education. Education is not only to take a pen and to write or to read a book. Education is something which we have to absorb in our blood in order to transfer it to the humanity, back to the world, to bring humanity to the world. Education is a big contribution to gender equality, to gender equity, and also as our gender equality base starts from home. So what is the definition of education in our homes? What is the definition of education in our communities? What is the definition of education in our society? And that is how we also move on to localization, to nationalization, into globalization, connecting it all to the universal declarations, conventions, and many more. Because all these conventions and universal declarations are tools to support humanity. And education is an all-time requirement, which all the people always need to invest for the future of the globe in the world. The last message which I would like to give to all of us, and that is, we can always make a change. We can always make a change, not for ourselves as individuals, but when we make our individuals as a collective to understand each other, that brings a result and an impact. And the result of that is, today, when I heard the speakers, everyone was talking about advanced society, advanced IT technology, advancement of how women started in. Is there any place where through this network that I see around 200 people, more than 190 people are listening, how can we as individuals put ourselves in a situation to feel what Afghan women are going through, either in Afghanistan or out of Afghanistan, evacuated, being a refugee life? So my call for all those who are sitting today is, put yourself in an Afghan woman's position. Don't think only as an Afghan woman, but think as a woman. How would you feel? You made a palace, a dream house for yourself, with education, with media, with arts, with cinema, with music, with engineering, with doctoring, and all of them collapsed on 15th of August like a sand house. As a human rights activist, all of you, how can you contribute? The first contribution is, don't forget Afghan women. Think about them and help them in any small little way or big little big policy level approach you can. Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, some real important bits there, and I look forward to speaking to you again later in the panel session. Rotary is not a political organisation, but it does have a worldwide membership, and advocacy is one way we can take action together to amplify girls' voices everywhere. I'd now like to introduce Lanai Colin Phillips. Lanai was a Rotary Young Citizens Award winner in 2021, and Lanai is an award winner in 2021 for her volunteering, including showing girls how to protect themselves and others. She's been a volunteer for over 5 years with the Volunteering Matters, predominantly on the What's Up project, which is for women against sexual exploitation and violence. Lanai, please tell us why taking action together is so important.
Thank you so much for introducing me, Steve, and thank you for welcoming me into this space. I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to speak alongside the other incredible women that I've been listening to today. So, as I say, I've been involved in quite a few different charities, including the charity UK Youth and fighting anti-Black racism, as well as looking at women's empowerment. So I think I'd like to start with saying that gender inequality, for me, I think it's important to acknowledge that it's a systemic and institutional issue. And actually, because all of our systems have been built on actually oppressing women, despite the fact that all of our systems require women to function, it means that often this oppression trickles right down. And sometimes as women, we internalize it. And for me, it's been really interesting to see how that actually impacts our young women today. And it's really important for me that we look at how we raise young women and young boys to make sure that women are empowered. So for example, the way that we would comment on someone when they're pregnant with a girl compared to when they're pregnant with a boy. And why do we look at that differently? Why do we think about the difference in the toys that they'll play with and the colors that they like? Because really, why does that matter? When they're born, they should be able to enjoy the things that they like instead of being told that a girl would like to play with a doll. Why don't we give her a car? And I think it's those subtle parts that can really impact the way that we form our ideas of gender roles, because from the moment a child is born, they're already bombarded with who they should be and how they should act based on their gender. And that is not correct, in my opinion. And so I think because empowering women benefits everyone, everyone should be involved in it. And actually, we shouldn't be raising girls to, you know, be a certain way to protect themselves against boys. We should be raising boys to empower women and support women in everything that they do. And I think that actually sometimes with, you know, women's equality and women empowerment, we're thinking of it as equality instead of equity. And I say equity because, as we've seen today, every single woman is coming from a different background with a different journey, with different needs. And we can't continue to see women as one group, because every single woman needs different support. And this is why with gender-based violence, often a lot of women aren't getting the help they need because the support is focused on one type of woman, and that's not right, because gender-based violence does not discriminate, and so we shouldn't be discriminating victims. And I have proof on this because from the Educations Alliance, the statistics show that a woman who is white in the UK will make 11 contacts before she gets help from abuse, and with a woman of colour it is 17 times before she gets help from abuse. And that's a significant difference. And a woman of colour also will suffer abuse 1.5 times longer than their white counterpart before they get the help that they need. And often many of those women will not ever receive support or be able to speak up about what they're going through. And this is why, although it's important that we try to understand what these women are going through, sometimes it's not possible for you to put yourself in someone's position if you just can't understand, coming from a different background or a different culture. But what it is about empathy, because every single woman deserves rights and every single woman deserves the ability to be heard and be protected. And this is why it's funny that we call it a fight or a campaign, because actually a woman having freedom and being safe should just be basic, and we shouldn't have to fight for it. But many women see being safe and being free as a distant privilege. And that's, for me, my only motivation, that I need to continue to try and elevate the voices of those that aren't being heard. I think as well, looking at accessibility, we've looked at the inequalities in disabled women, for example, but also we need to look at trans women and women that are part of the LGBTQIA+ community, because again, they're groups that are often missed. And when we look at campaigns for domestic violence, often we see maybe a picture of a white woman with bruising on her, but a darker skinned Black woman might look at that and think, well, what if people don't see my bruises in the same way? And it's also an issue, because actually with abuse, often there might not be any physical abuse. It could be emotional, it could be financial. And we need to ensure we're educating children on the amalgamation of abuse and how it can impact them. And I do urge to say that if you are afraid of talking to young children about abuse, if you're afraid to talk to them about these things because it's too scary, think about the fact that we hand young children phones where they can be exposed to much worse and exposed to the world and everything that's going on. So we shouldn't be afraid to educate them and keep them safe. So I think, yeah, in terms of the fact, looking at this as oppression, I think it's really important that we acknowledge our own privileges and our own unconscious biases when it comes to empowering women, because as I said, we all have different needs. And this is why I urge anyone that's involved in empowering women or groups or speaking, that we look at the fact that, are we translating our services? So women that don't speak English, for example, if you're living in the UK, they can access services. Are we acknowledging different religions and respecting that, and different cultures and their needs? And it's really important to keep that in mind in everything that we do, so that we're not missing anyone out. And I think, for me, I just want more for our girls. I want more for myself. And I'm not afraid to say that. I think sometimes with women, we can be told, you know, not to be, you know, when we're told to be a certain way, not to be too loud, not to be too outspoken. But I'm not afraid to say that I want more. And, you know, I won't stop until we get what we deserve. And as Bell Hooks says, who's an incredible woman, sometimes people try to destroy you precisely because they recognize your power, and not because they don't see it, but because they see it and they don't want it to exist. And I think we need to show people that as women, we will not be stopping until we have the platforms that we need. And I really encourage everyone to join that fight. And finally, to say, from Audre Lorde, another incredible woman, to look up and educate yourself on if you're looking for literature and powerful women to be inspired by. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard this quote, but I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own. So thank you so much. I'm really grateful for having this position. And yeah, thank you. That's it.
Well, thank you very much for your time there, Lanai, and for, you know, being such an inspiration. And I know you're going to be part of our panel later. Just to give you a little bit of housekeeping, we've got so much great content and so much being said that I just want to let you know we are maybe about 10 minutes behind, but that's not to put anybody off, not to worry anybody, but just to make people aware. And it's only because of how much we're trying to fit in. And by definition now, we haven't got too much time to explore it in much detail, but save the date of Sunday the 18th of June Saturday the 18th of June from 10 AM to 1 PM for another seminar about how peace means something different to every one of us, and how we can all help ourselves and others to live a more peaceful life. On that, it brings me, you know, sadly, violence against women is something that keeps hitting the headlines. And just a few weeks ago, there was a shocking murder of Ashley Murphy, and it brought people together across Ireland and in many other parts of the world. And of course, less than a year ago, Sarah Everard was kidnapped and subsequently murdered in England. And there's one young woman on the Isle of Guernsey, who was so moved by everything that she read and heard, she decided to do something about it. And I'd like to welcome Poppy Murray, and she's the creator of BLADS, which is helping, or BELADS, which is helping women and girls feel safer on the streets. And the video clip we're about to see was from March last year in memory of Sarah.
It's not all men. It is all women who dare to walk alone. It is the woman who did everything right and still did not make it home. It's the woman whose name was lost to the screams of hashtag not all men, to the voices who are making it clear that this is nothing to do with them. It is the voices shouting that women should not taint the many by the actions of the few, and that we should not be silently assessing the potential threats posed to us by you. It's not all men. It is all women. And that's something we all have to see. It is every single woman you know, your friends, your colleagues, and your family. It is every woman you know. That's the facts, there's no exception. If you think it's not all women, then you have to change your perception. You shouldn't be shouting at us to recognise that you are not that man. You should all be shouting for us, as loud as you possibly can. It's not all men, and we have never said that it is. It is the women who cannot speak, and the only voice in their story is his. It's all the women who are tired of constantly having to be on high alert, worried that if we miss the danger, it will be our fault if we get hurt. Women can do everything right, but still be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Just trying to walk yourself home should not make you the victim of a crime. It's not all men, but with all men is where this has to begin. All women know the change that's needed, but change has to come from within. Men, if it's not you, then you should be the voices of change. Talk to each other, educate each other, and make sure that nothing stays the same. Sarah Everard is all women. Hers is a story we've heard time and time again. It's time that we all walk with Sarah, because all women should be safe from all men.
I was really honoured to have been asked to speak at the vigil held in the memory of Sarah Everard here in Guernsey in March of last year. And the reason I was asked to speak was off the back of creating a campaign which helps to raise awareness of women's safety when they're walking alone. Like a lot of people, and particularly women my age, I was really shocked by the case of Sarah Everard, and it of course is not an isolated incident. I think there's an instinct for women when you see these stories to wonder, what did that woman do or not do that I should do that will keep me safe? And one of the most shocking things about Sarah Everard's story was she did all the things that we try and do all the time, and the answer to what could she have done differently was absolutely nothing. I started just scrolling through comments on social media, and of course thousands of women were sharing their own stories about what has happened to them, what tactics they use to try and stay safe, and stories of themselves and their friends when they haven't been safe. One comment really stood out to me, which was from a man named Tom, who said, "What can I as a man do to help prevent this?" It was really interesting to see that comment come from a man, because I know that guys, or most guys, hopefully do want to try and help us, but they simply were not aware that we feel so unsafe when we're walking alone. And I started to talk to men in my peer group and asked, would you be happy with your sister or girlfriend to walk home alone? And they said, oh, no, I definitely wouldn't want them to walk alone. And I said, or do you think all women are afraid to walk alone? And they said, no, I don't think so. And there seemed to be a complete disconnect between them thinking that their loved ones were not safe and then translating that into all women don't feel safe. So I wanted to come up with a campaign that would help bring that message across to men and also answer the question, what can men do to help? Alongside all of these comments of women sharing these stories, the hashtag #NotAllMen started trending. It Because men were feeling like they were being vilified and attacked, and that we were accusing them all of being threats to us. And the thing that my campaign does is really hone in on the fact that we know it's not all men, but it does affect all women. And that's something that I don't think men have understood fully, that it really is all women. It's every woman in their life will have a story like this or will have been afraid. And so I came up with the Be Lads acronym because I wanted to change the narrative of what it means to be a lad. So the advice to give to men is be visible. So if you're walking and a woman alone is walking near you, don't hide in the shadows, don't have your hood up, make sure that we can see you. So other advice is to ease the tension by making a phone call, because if the woman can hear that you're talking to a friend, you're preoccupied, you're not talking about her, that makes them feel a lot more comfortable. Looking away and not staring. For men who are not threats to us and they don't have any bad intentions, they may not be aware that they're kind of looking in our direction, but we will be extremely aware of it. So it's just trying to make guys understand that we do notice when you're looking. It's also to encourage men to be active bystanders, that if their friends are making comments that are inappropriate or making women feel uncomfortable, that they should intervene and help the woman by telling their friend that that behaviour is not acceptable. Another piece of advice is to just simply distance yourself. So if you're walking in the same direction as a woman, which men have every right to do, everyone's trying to get home, but you can just cross the road if there's a pavement on both sides, or drop back a bit or go further ahead. Don't be walking right up behind someone. And then finally, to suggest walking their friends home. And a key part of that is to only suggest it to women that they know, and don't offer to walk strangers home, because that can be quite intimidating. Unless, of course, the woman has asked for help. So I came up with this campaign, and I initially sent it to all the states members in our local government, and it was picked up by the media, and it really gained traction, I think, just because of the simplicity of it. And it's just raising awareness, asking men to do very simple things to help. It doesn't take time, it doesn't take money. So what happened was it was in the media, and then I was asked to present it to one of the state's committees here. And as a result of that, it got picked up by the Education Department. After I presented the campaign to the Education Department, it was picked up to be a part of the curriculum for all 16-year-olds here in Guernsey in every school. And the lesson is for both boys and girls. So it raises the issue with boys and tells them what they can do to help us. It also gives valuable information to girls on steps they can take to improve their own safety, and apps that are available that might help them to do that. So a key part of this is educating guys before they go out, before they're old enough to be going out, that they can be aware of these things and help women feel a bit more safe. But not only that, it also gives information to girls on ways that they can stay safe. There's been some fantastic initiatives that have come out of the tragic case of Sarah Everard, but like the Strut Safe phone number, where it's been set up in Scotland that anyone across the UK can phone this number if they're walking home alone and they just want someone to talk to until they're home safely. There's also apps available, for example, the Hollyguard app, where you can share your location. It has an emergency alarm, and you can activate emergency contacts if you're unsafe. So it's giving that information to girls as well as giving information to guys on what they can do to help, because this really is about bringing men and women together on this issue, not dividing them. So I'm working with Jannine of the Rotary Club to try and put together a package that can be rolled out across Britain and Ireland, for your communities if you want to pick up on the Be Lads campaign. But please, if you have any questions or want any resources, don't hesitate to contact me.
Well, firstly, thank you, Poppy, and you'll have the opportunity to hear more from Poppy on the 18th of June at the Peace Seminar that I mentioned. Moving on, Rotaract is a vibrant and diverse part of the Rotary family, bringing together people aged 18 to 30 plus, and some links to find out more about Rotaract in Great Britain and Ireland will be included in the follow-up material you're going to receive after this. And I'd like to introduce you to Heidi, Eggleton and James Thomas, the chair and vice chair, respectively. Neither of them could be here with us today, but they're both very, very passionate about empowering girls, and they sent us this video.
Hi everybody, my name's Heidi and I'm the current chair of Rotaract in Great Britain and Ireland. By profession, I'm a gender equality activist and I work in the field of international development and peace building. But today I'm here to talk to you about flipping the coin on empowering girls. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean, in order to empower girls, we need to be educating boys. And I don't just mean sending them to primary and secondary school, because we know that's already happening. I mean educating boys and men on the issues and challenges that girls, women, and marginalised genders face. Not only that, but raising the topic of the challenges that boys and men face as a result of the patriarchy. So firstly, what is a patriarchy? Well, it's the worldwide system that prioritises the rights and opportunities for men and boys. And it typically recognises women as second-class citizens. Now, we do still live in a patriarchal society. And, you know, a good example of this would be to look at the percentage of CEOs around the world that are women compared to men, you know, looking at worldwide the rates of girls in education compared to boys. Those are some examples to prove that we do still live in a patriarchal, you know, male-led society. And, you know, not only is this harmful for girls, but it's also harmful for boys. And it's important for them to know that in order for them to be more willing to get on board with this campaign. So if we look at the UK, we know that the rates of male suicide and mental health are particularly high amongst young men and boys. And one of the key reasons behind this is because typically men and boys feel like they can't talk about their feelings. And why? It's because, you know, they're told from a very young age, be a man, be tough, boys don't cry. But we know that this shouldn't be the case, right? Boys, just like girls, are humans. We all have emotions and they should be allowed to express them just the same as girls and women. So if we can start breaking down some of this toxic masculinity that the boys of the incoming generation are still facing, you know, then we can start looking at making the world more equal. And if we can do that, then, you know, girls are automatically going to be empowered. So that's one way of engaging boys, right, is by flipping the coin and talking about the issues that boys also face within the patriarchal society. Now, the second thing I'm going to talk to you about today is why is reducing violence against women and girls important in empowering girls? Now, you know, if we want girls to be empowered, they need to feel safe. And there has been, you know, so much reporting recently on the high rates of violence that women and girls face, right? For example, if we look at sexual harassment in schools, girls aren't reporting it anymore because it's just been normalised. Girls think, typically in secondary schools within the UK, that it's okay to be harassed. They think it's normal, so that they wouldn't even class it as harassment. It's crazy, right? We look at, you know, rape culture, you know, the norm of sending nude photos. This isn't, you know, the environment that we should be wanting the next generation to be, you know, coming up through. So what are we going to do about it? And again, this comes back to engaging boys and men. We need to make men and boys feel included in the fight to end violence against women in order to end violence against women. Because the other thing, if we're constantly putting all the emphasis and pressure on girls, women and marginalised genders to empower themselves, you know, we're going to make their lives very hard. Whereas if we include the other half of the population, then suddenly it's a society problem rather than a gender problem. And I think that's something that shouldn't be overlooked. Often we look at gender issues as something that's very small and sort of in its own little group over here. So if you ask me, in order to empower girls, we need to educate our boys. And lastly, how can Rotaract help? Well, I think if we break this down and look beyond the organisation, what's evident is we need to be using a, you know, multi-generational approach in order to empower girls. You know, the benefits of Rotaractors is obviously we haven't long been girls ourselves or boys ourselves. So many of us are now young women and young men that have lived experiences, you know, from less than 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that we can now be sharing with other people, with Rotary clubs, with Rotarians in those shared dialogues. Because if we share our stories, we can also, you know, start collaborating on solutions. And I think all generations have something very, very valuable to contribute towards this debate. So how can we empower girls? Well, let's work together across generations, across Rotary, across Rotaract, and let's educate our boys and men alongside our efforts to empower girls. Thank you.
Hello, my name is James Thomas, and I will be chair of Rotaract GB&I beginning the 1st of July this year. Thank you so much to Jannine and the team for inviting me to speak to you today. It's a real privilege because this topic is something that I feel so strongly about. But where do I begin? As a man, as a 20-something-year-old man at that, as part of the woke generation, we're the leaders of gender equality and speaking out, right? Well, I don't think so. I start about speaking about my own experiences growing up. In my formative years, 15, 16, up to 19, the thoughts and feelings I had towards women were incredibly derogatory. Now, it's not just that, but my surroundings, my peers, everything that I was consuming and hearing was all anti-women, was all imbalanced. To actually overcome this and reflect on what's happened, you have to listen. You have to become an active bystander. I turned a corner in my life when I did start educating myself on gender issues. I never even knew they existed because I've never once in my life been affected by anything concerned to my gender. I've never missed an opportunity. I've never felt threatened. Nothing. So how can I have awareness of something that I have never experienced? Meanwhile, women on a daily basis have to have these concerns. Can I walk home at night? Am I safe on this train by myself? Is this man going to be friendly to me? Will I get this job in a male-dominated STEM field? All these problems just are non-existent for men. And what I like to say is women shouldn't be expected to solve a problem that they didn't create. It takes men raising awareness, listening, elevating the voices of women, speaking out when they hear something, becoming active bystanders, how change can happen. We are at a vital point in our development of this issue, and I believe we can get far. But to get far, it requires us all collectively to do our part. I appreciate that I am somewhat speaking to the converted tonight because you are taking that step to become an active bystander by just attending this meeting. You are educating yourselves, but is it enough? I don't think so. Everyone can do more. Everyone can do their bit. When we speak about Rotary and Rotaract, what can we specifically do? Well, we're seen as role models, as community leaders, people of action. What can people of action do to address this issue? Well, we have to acknowledge it. Just as we've acknowledged polio, as we put funds, experience, expertise, projects, man hours towards this, are we doing that for gender issues? Are we trying to actively educate other men, actively enhance and uplift women in our local communities? I think we can do so much more together. We can learn a lot from each other. So in summary, let's come together. Let's act on these issues. Be active bystanders. Address the problems in our communities. Uplift women. We can make it happen, and we're going in the right direction. I feel very positive about this approach, about how we can, as an organisation, do so much more, and we will do so much more. So if there's going to be one takeaway from this, it's that it's not an attack on men to be focusing on women and uplifting women. But it is an educational issue, it's an awareness issue, and it's something that we should all carry into our hearts. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Well, some real important reminders there from Heidi and James, including the importance of a multi-generational approach. And women and girls, as it's said so nicely there by James, shouldn't be expected to solve a problem they didn't create. It takes men and women raising awareness and speaking to make change happen. Taking action together to empower girls means collaborating in the family of Rotary, in our networks and in our communities with other organisations. And if you're sitting here thinking that it isn't relevant to me or my community, then maybe think again. If we scratch the surface of what's happening in our own backyards, we might be surprised at what you start to unearth. Jannine and her team are reaching out to people and organisations with a wealth of knowledge and experience relevant to empowering girls to see how the Rotary might be able to collaborate with them. And one such organisation is Plan International. And some of you might know this because you're a good enough person to already be sponsoring a child with them. Plan International does so much more than just the including right here in Britain and Ireland through both their UK and Irish offices. Heidi spoke about sexual harassment in schools, which was quite an eye-opener for me, and she fears that it's becoming normalised and girls don't report it. Well, Plan International UK have been doing a lot of work on this, which you'll hear about in this video.
Hello everyone, I hope you're all well. My name is Emily and I'm the Community and Events Officer in the fundraising team at Plan International UK. Thank you for having us here today, and we are very grateful for the support from Rotary Great Britain and Ireland. Plan International UK is a global children's charity that strives to advance children's rights and equality for girls all over the world. We recognise the power and potential of every single child, but we also know that this potential is often suppressed by poverty, violence, exclusion and discrimination. Plan International works with communities in over 50 countries to tackle the root causes of exclusion and injustice for all children and make sure they have access to the education, healthcare and future opportunities they need to thrive. We have a strong focus on girls because they often are denied their right to work, to learn, to make their own choices and to access protection and justice when they need it most. As a national office, Plan International UK is the UK representative of the global family. We raise vital funds through child sponsorship, individual giving, trusts, corporate partnerships and from institutional and major donors, as well as leading change-making advocacy and campaigns for girls in the UK and globally. In terms of our areas of work, Plan International invests more into education than any other area and work to make sure children and young people get the knowledge and life skills they need to reach their full potential. We support education from early childhood through to post-secondary level. We help build schools and training teachers, set up temporary learning spaces after an emergency, and making sure girls and the communities they grow up in know their rights. I've mentioned child sponsorship, and this is a key way supporters can make a difference. We work closely with children and communities, listen to the challenges they face, and combine expertise with local knowledge to find long-lasting solutions together. Funds raised through sponsorship will be carefully spent to benefit a child's whole community. Each sponsored child has been chosen by their community as an ambassador and is uniquely connected to the sponsor. As a sponsor, you can send and receive letters and drawings from the child you are connected to, and each communication is carefully checked for safeguarding. Globally, there are 1.4 million children sponsored by sponsors all over the world. Period shame and poverty is an area that Plan International UK focus greatly on in the UK. Girls and other menstruators face shame and stigma when they get their period, and as our research shows, their experiences at school are contributing to a culture of embarrassment that they have to face every month. They're having to ask their teachers if they can go to the toilet in front of their whole class. Often they're being told they can't leave the room, even if they explain that they have to go because they're on their period. And when they get to the toilet, they might well be missing the essential facilities they need to manage their period properly. With young people's well-being, their education and their success at school at stake, we believe things have to change. That's why Plan International UK launched its Menstrual Manifesto in 2018 and identified the key steps that must be taken to end period taboos and improve young people's experiences of having their period, including at school. We want to work with teachers and schools to make sure that every school in the UK provides free access to toilets. Unisex accessible boys and girls school toilets include at least one toilet with a sink in the cubicle and have enough bins for disposal of menstrual products, so that every school can support its teachers to speak about periods and puberty without embarrassment or shame. Primary schools are able to accommodate the needs of those who start their periods early. And finally, that all primary and secondary schools offer integrated classes for girls and boys to learn about periods. Most of our research and information comes from our 2018 report, Break the Barriers, Girls' Experience of Menstruation in the UK. This report shows that negative talk about periods are damaging girls' self-esteem and sense of self-worth, putting their physical health at risk and contributing to period poverty. If you'd like to read this report further, you can download it on our website.
Hi, I'm Ruby, the Campaigns Officer at Plan International UK. Together with grassroots youth organisation Our Streets Now, we launched our Crime Not Compliment campaign in 2020, calling on the government to make public sexual harassment a crime. So we define public sexual harassment as unwanted sexual behaviours, actions or gestures, which could be verbal, non-verbal or physical in public places. So these harmful and abusive behaviours can include persistent leering, following or staring, and they can happen in anywhere which the public has access to. So parks, university campuses, public transport and in shopping centres. We know that girls as young as 10 are being harassed and followed every day. Public sexual harassment is relentless and it has to stop. We've spoken with girls and they've told us how it restricts their freedom and impacts their mental health. But the problem is that there's no single piece of legislation to criminalise public sexual harassment. So this means that many of these behaviours fall through the legal cracks. Where there are existing laws, they're really outdated and they stretch back centuries. And they're also disjointed, so many women and girls are left feeling unprotected, unsafe and unsupported. But we've worked with human rights lawyers to develop a parliament-ready bill which will finally give girls the protection that they need and deserve in public places. This is one vital step as part of the solution, and it will send a clear message to society that this behaviour is not acceptable. You can show your support by adding your name to the campaign, which will show the government just how many people agree that public sexual harassment needs to be made a crime.
There are a number of ways in which you can support Plan International UK today and into the future. Firstly, you can join our Crime Not Compliment campaign by signing our petition and spreading awareness. Hopefully 2022 will be the year that we make public sexual harassment a crime. Secondly, by following Plan International UK on our social media channels, you can keep up to date with our work, key issues, and hear from children and communities around the world. Finally, as I said earlier, sponsoring a child is a key way supporters can make a real difference. You can choose to sponsor a child from a specific area, or if you have no preference, you will be allocated wherever the need is greatest. However big or small, all of these actions will help advance children's rights and equality for girls all around the world. Thank you so much for listening today and for your support in protecting girls' rights in the UK and around the world. We're very grateful to be a part of this seminar today. Thank you.
Well, again, another video with so much information in it. Moving on, we've got Jannine Birtwistle, the Empowering Girls Ambassador here in Great Britain and Ireland, who's been a huge part of everything that's going on today. And she's been talking with Plan International UK and others about learning from each other. and collaborating to make a big impact in empowering girls. Let me hand you over to Jannine to pull together some of the things that you've heard today and explain about other things that are happening to empower girls and the ideas for taking action together. And of course, we'll then be coming back for our speakers panel, answering as many of your questions as possible. There's been an awful lot of questions that have come in, so please understand we might not get through them all, but Jannine is going to ensure they're all followed up. Thanks so much for everyone getting involved with that. But before that, Jannine, over to you.
Thanks so much, Steve, and thanks to everybody that's actually with us today, to all the amazing speakers that we've had. And, you know, this really is about us all taking action together. You know, the vision for Rotary is that together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change. And if we can create that lasting change to empower girls for a better world for them as individuals, for their families, their communities together. And, you know, one of the strengths about Rotary is the way that we can network in our communities with other organisations, share expertise, share experience, share our passions. And what's fantastic today is we've got so many attendees, not just from Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland, but actually from other parts of the world. And as equally as importantly, it's from many other organisations as well, individuals that are passionate in one way or another about empowering girls. And it is, of course, such a huge subject. We can't possibly cover it in one day. But this is the starting point. Let's continue to work together. Let's continue to listen to each other. Let's share our experiences. Let's see how we can make a difference. And also what we as individuals can do to make that difference. Young people, we have heard so much from them. You know, they want us to listen. They want to be involved. They want to be empowered. They don't want us to do things for them. They want to have their own voices, and we can help that. Earlier, some of the speakers have mentioned about COVID. Well, the gender gap has risen from the already daunting of 99.5 years gender gap to close that gap, to now with COVID to over 135 years. We've heard from Elizabeth, next slide please, about the context for empowering girls globally. And a lot of what Rotary does is focused around 7 particular areas, and pretty much everything, you know, all of the UN Sustainable Development Goals fits within these, whether it's promoting peace, whether it's fighting disease, providing clean water so that children can go to school, saving mothers and children, the things we've heard around menstrual health and hygiene, supporting education, that message we keep hearing today, education, education, education. But that education has to be available to all. Think about the messages that Hasina has already given us. Growing local economies and protecting the environment. You know, we are one human race on one planet Earth. We all have a responsibility to take action together. What we're asking you to do is please continue to serve all children, not just about the girls. But we are asking you to just take a step back and look through a lens, take a laser focus about the girls. Is what you are doing truly inclusive? Are you meeting the needs specific to girls? Yes, there are needs specific to boys as well, but this is just one lens we're asking you to do. Anne and Abbie have talked about the need to include girls of all abilities and the diversity of being invited to the party. She actually wants to be asked to dance. Abbie, you know, asking us to open closed doors to make sure that everyone is treated equally. There's actually a recent blog post within the Rotary world, and it was from a young Rotary member who has a vision impairment, and it is something that we will be sharing with you next week. You know, it's actually got some really insightful things of do's and don'ts about being an ally for anybody with any form of disability. And do remember that disability doesn't always have to be visible. It can be invisible too. We're talking a lot about empowerment, and you know, 2 key components of being an ally for empowering girls with different abilities is to listen and to clear the obstacles for them, but not actually doing that, teaching them how to do it for themselves. We have been encouraged to challenge our existing assumptions, our biases, seek to understand what the problems are, listen, be involved, be part of your communities, look at your existing projects. How could you change them? How could you improve them? Do they need improving? Or if they're so fantastic already, can you share them with us? Are there new initiatives that we could do? Next slide. Let's create the space for young girls and all young people to use their voice, to feel empowered and to be able to define their own identity. You know, Rotary, the map on the left of your screens, that's the Rotary map for Great Britain and Ireland. We're split into different areas. We call them districts. Every district, every Rotary club does their own thing, but we are part of a world organisation. We do things in our own communities and we do things globally. Some people think, oh, this isn't a problem for Great Britain and Ireland. This isn't a problem in my community. Actually scratch beneath the surface, start really listening. If you haven't heard from our speakers enough today, that there really are problems wherever we are. They may be different problems in different parts of your communities, in different cultures within our communities. I mean, if you look at Great Britain and Ireland, it's a hodgepodge of humanity with all sorts of different cultures and beliefs, whether it's about abuse, whether it's about misogyny, whether it's about early marriage, whether it's about lack of education, human trafficking, slavery, so many different things. And don't forget, if you are helping with refugees, whether they be from Afghanistan or from anywhere else, culture, language, there are so many different barriers. Let's break down those barriers and let's be sure that we are being fully inclusive. Rotary Great Britain and Ireland, we have a fantastic Rotary magazine. It is available on the rotarygbi.org website. It's now accessible, so you can listen to it as well as read it. The February issue, which will be coming out in the next couple of weeks, has some features around empowering girls. You know, we're just giving you some examples. For instance, Izzy Sanderson from the York Anstey Rotary Club is a Rotary Champions of Change winner. They've been at the forefront of an initiative called York Kits, which brings volunteers in their community together to make washable feminine hygiene kits for girls that has gone to 13 African countries, as well as India, Nepal, Myanmar and Pakistan. Just one story, a personal story in there from Rotarian Elizabeth Amoa, and you know, a really passionate story. There are many ways of getting involved with Rotary through action groups or whatever else. You know, Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland really wants to empower young people through a number of programs, competitions and initiatives so that they can develop the skills, they can learn themselves and about the world around them. RYLA, that stands for Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. Lanai was sponsored by the Suffolk Police Commissioner to be a member of a RYLA course. She described it as a life-changing experience, just one of the opportunities through Rotary. Make sure whether you're a Rotarian doing these things, that you make sure you are looking at the inclusivity aspect of it for girls, for people with different abilities, that you are being fair and equal. Young people want inclusivity. I'd now like to just show you a short video from Dr. Ajaz Ahmed Khan. And this is actually from a third party that we've been talking with, an organisation called Lendwithcare.
And thank you so much for this invitation to speak at Rotary's event about empowering women and girls. What is Lendwithcare? Well, it's a crowdfunding platform that supports poor and marginalised people in low-income countries around the world. Rather than charity or handouts, people are given loans to establish, or as is more often the case, help develop their businesses so they can support themselves. The idea behind Lendwithcare is to provide a hand up rather than a handout. The focus is very much on creating employment and income earning opportunities and enabling people to work and become financially self-sufficient. Well, it's a very simple idea, very simple concept. You go onto the website, www.lendwithcare.org, and you select a person who you wish to lend to. The minimum amount that you can lend is £15. You just select whichever business you wish to support, and then you make a loan to that particular person. The person you select invests the money in their business, and then all being well, repays you. At that stage, once you've got the money back into your account, you can choose to either reinvest in another business or you can withdraw your money. We support small businesses in 11 countries. Then we work through 13 local partner organisations. Our partners are invariably not-for-profit organisations or cooperatives that work for the benefit of their members. They're the ones that appraise the loans, they're the ones that disperse the money and collect the repayments. Not just finance, all our partners will provide a range of other services as well. We began Lendwithcare in 2010, and I've been here since the beginning. And so far, we've raised over £40 million, which has supported more than 160,000 small businesses around the world. And despite the challenges of working in some of the countries where we do, the repayment rate is over 99%. Now, we have a clear focus on supporting women, and about two-thirds of the loans that we make on Lendwithcare are directed specifically towards women, and this includes quite high proportions of single mothers and widows. Having said that, we also support other marginalised and vulnerable communities, such as people from ethnic minorities, the elderly, and people living with disabilities. So the aim of Lendwithcare, through the loans and the businesses that we create, is to improve the lives of poor people, particularly women. But the key is that it's done through economic empowerment. I mean, that's very much our focus, encouraging, promoting economic empowerment. We want to help create sustainable jobs. We want to increase incomes. We want to generate wealth. We want to build assets. Our underlying philosophy, it's about helping to promote self-reliance and independence in poor communities around the world. I've been involved in international development work for more than 30 years. So in my experience, women's economic empowerment is absolutely fundamental to improving their lives. And this is because not only does it give women more income, but it gives them an independent source of income. And this in turn leads to greater choices. It also increases their sense of self-esteem and self-confidence. It enables their greater participation in local affairs. And indeed, it even increases their recognition by other members of the family or the household and the wider community, and promotes people's dignity. It doesn't encourage women or indeed other marginalised groups to be seen or treated as some passive recipients of someone else's charity. And that, I think, is really important. Without Rotary's help in achieving all this, it just wouldn't have been possible. At the last count, we had over 370 Rotary clubs in the United Kingdom and Ireland that had signed up to Lendwithcare. I mean, collectively, the latest figures show us that the Rotary clubs have loaned more than £1.6 million, and they've supported tens of thousands of small businesses in low-income countries around the world. The vast majority of them run by women. Supports women's economic empowerment through helping them to develop their businesses. So, on behalf of all of us that are involved with Lendwithcare, thank you, Rotary, for all your support. It's been absolutely invaluable. Thank you.
So that's an amazing organisation that Rotary clubs in Great Britain and Ireland do work with. But actually, we also have our own charity within Rotary, a charity that's one of the best in the world. And I'm not being biased there. I truly believe that, and evidence supports that. That's the Rotary Foundation, and Rotary clubs, using the power of grants through the Rotary Foundation, can actually be doing so much more, and do so much more, because every pound that they raise actually has a bigger impact in many of the projects. And just like Lendwithcare do microfinance, there are actually specific Rotary Foundation grants around microcredits. So for those Rotarians out there, why not look at what you might be doing with microcredits, with microfinancing through the Rotary grant system as well, working with and collaborating with your clubs in other parts of the world. The power of grants is that we can increase the impact. And I said before, we've only touched on some of the areas relevant to empowering girls. And one aspect that we haven't covered is the female genital mutilation. And in fact, there is, in the February issue of the Rotary magazine, a feature about freedom from fistula and work that Rotarians in southern Scotland have been doing with them. Absolutely incredible. And that's just one of the examples about grants. Today, there are attendees here from other parts of the Rotary world who are looking for partners to help them in the initiatives that they're doing. And just one example of that for the next slide, please, is a partner that I've been in touch with, a fellow Rotarian in India, Sandesh Savant. And Sandesh is actually from Pune City Rotary Club, and they've done many grants empowering girls and women. They've got two particular initiatives at the moment they're looking at, of many. One is around training 40 underprivileged girls in rural suburbs of Pune, and they'll be training them in auxiliary nursing vocational training, a 2-year course. It gives them skills that will serve them for life. It helps them to contribute to society. It gives them self-belief, self-confidence. If you're interested in finding out more, please let me know and I'll put you in touch with Sandesh. Another thing we've talked about today is around digital penetration, digital divide. And, you know, we've seen that here, even in Great Britain and Ireland. Don't think it's just a problem elsewhere. During the COVID pandemic, particularly, when the lack of access to devices to be able to continue education out of the school setting was just awful. Well, there's a programme that, again, Sandesh in Pune City are looking to do a global grant around, and that's providing not just a 3-month course for 400 girls in a qualification for IT, but at the same time, they'll be doing a second course alongside that, which is around menstrual management and hygiene, because it is something that is the cultural lack of awareness they want to help to address. And Sharmila, we've heard from her today. We will have a coffee and chat session specifically around empowering girls. We have them every month. A date for your diaries, 26th of May, 6 till 7, with Sharmila and with other people around period poverty and all things menstrual. QE Interact. I know their presentation was so fast. We will be sharing it with you as one of the follow-ups. It was fantastic. It is about empowering girls, and I just love this slide, which was in their presentation. Young people want a world equal and fair to all, that one human race on one planet Earth. The B-Lads initiative with Poppy, I mean, simple and amazing. We really want to see how we can introduce that for clubs here in Great Britain and Ireland. So if you're interested, please reach out to me and we can see how we can work with Poppy to make it what I'm calling a project in a box. Easy to roll out, easy for everybody to be part of the B-Lads initiative. And there are many other initiatives around that. We've purposely only actually had 2 men really speaking today, apart from Ajaz from the Lendwithcare, that's Steve, our fantastic host, and James Thomas, who's the Vice Chair of Rotaract. James has said, you know, a key component of overcoming the challenges associated with gender issues is awareness for boys and men. Women shouldn't be expected to change a problem they didn't create. Men should help on the journey to a more equal future. Heidi, she has actually asked us to flip the coin. Remember that it's not just about the challenges that girls and women face and marginalised genders too in our patriarchal society, but actually boys and men also face challenges in that society. And we need to be educating boys, men, women, girls. We need everybody to be part of this. Cathleen is also a Rotaractor. Cathleen will be on the panel session with us shortly. Kathleen and the simple project that they've created, what an impact for the people receiving those personal care pantry kits. Not a difficult thing for any of you to be getting involved with. We have to work with other organisations as well, and that's why we're in dialogue already with Plan International, both in the UK and Ireland, Lendwithcare, Soroptimist, Circle. There are loads of other organisations we want to engage with because we can't do it all, but what we can do is try and identify what's happening. How can we connect? How can we network? How can we support and collaborate with each other? You know, Soroptimists do so much around the empowerment of women and girls. The Circle do so much about girls. There's so many organisations. The White Ribbon Campaign, that's something you're going to hear more about in the year ahead and around peace. I'd like now, if we could move to the next slide, is to just give you an example of a project that actually was founded not by Rotarians, but by the amazing Tony and Lynn Churchill, a programme around OK Our Kids mission of Watch Out. And actually, Steve doesn't know I was going to be mentioning this, but he is also an ambassador for them. Why is he? Because it's an amazing opportunity. It's a really simple initiative. It's a book and a game for young people. The mission is to help young children deal confidently with the challenges and dangers of staying safe at home, staying safe at school and in the community. And it's about empowering them with the skills they need to face everyday situations, knowing what's the right thing to do and to lead by example. The book is full of drawings from children. It's a prompt for discussion at home, in families, in schools, about the issues that really impact on young people, girls and boys, county lines, bullying, diversity, disability, loads of different issues covered that young people can be helped to feel less uncomfortable and less vulnerable. If you're interested in finding out how Rotary can help engage with that, and many clubs and districts are already doing so, Brenda Parsons from the service team, her email will be put in chat, and she's the person to reach out to in the first instance. The core Empowering Girls team in Britain and Ireland, it's not just myself and Shwetal. We've got some really passionate people. You've seen Cathleen and Sharmila today. We've got Rotarians David Hartley, Eve Conway, Madu and Manoj. We do think it's important to listen, and we've been spending the last few months doing that. As I've said before, we're not the experts. We want to listen, we want to collaborate, we want to hear from you, we want to share experiences, share success stories. We've got a complete mix of backgrounds and experiences with that shared passion. For instance, Madu lives in India and yet is a member of an e-club from Australia and is on the Rotary Great Britain and Ireland Empowering Girls team. So it's about networking and connecting around the world in our communities. So I hope you've got some ideas today about how to identify a project and implement it, but this is just that starting point. Come and join us in future conversations, whether you're going to be forming your own Interact club maybe in your community, or helping with the B-Lads initiative, or whatever it is, just being that advocate. Many of you have got granddaughters, children, you know, whatever, young people, they are the future. Let's help them. Next slide. Find out more about how you could get involved, but also to help with your personal development and your personal skills is why not register and go to the free Volunteer Expo event, which Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland are hosting. It's at the NEC in Birmingham on the 6th and 7th of May. Lots of different charities there, including Rotary, giving you opportunities to find out more, to talk, to learn, and workshops to develop your own skills. So go ahead and register for free at volunteerexpo.co.uk. This is the start of a conversation. We do have monthly coffee and chat sessions. The next one is actually on Monday, the 21st of February. We will be sending you the link. Anybody is welcome to join those. You do have to register in advance though, and please don't share your joining details. They're 1 hour sessions where we sometimes explore a particular initiative, or we just share stories, help overcome problems, what the challenges are. Please think about coming and joining us. So the 21st of Feb is our next one. The ones on the right of the page are other dates. You will receive details about that. Save the date, the Volunteer Expo. The 26th of May, that's a coffee and chat session specifically around all things menstrual. And our next seminar like this is on the 18th of June, same time, 10 AM to 1 PM, peace amidst chaos. And it's so interlinked with empowering girls. Next slide. When I was talking to somebody from the WHO, Heather, about empowering girls and gender equality, we were talking about feedback, and that neither of us actually like feedback because we feel it's judgmental, it's looking at the past, it doesn't help us to shape the future. So let's remember that in what we are doing, both about today's event and as we work together going forward. So let's take action together and let's feed forward. So after today, come back with your suggestions for the future. How can we improve events like this? How can we give you the information you need? What do you want? Next slide. I want to hand back to Steve and to the panel, but please use the power of your own voices. Men, as Hasina says, will you be a man of quality? Don't forget those Afghan women. Help in any small way that you can. Lanai, elevate the voices. Be the voice for those who are unable to use them. What action will you take? From the words at the video at the beginning of this whole session and the one that you will have at the end of the panel session, which is when we're going to be closing, words there are: empowering girls is an investment which upholds their rights today and promises a more equitable and prosperous future where half of humanity is an equal partner. That's what this is about. Thank you, Steve. Can I hand back to you, to much more professional person than me, to handle the panel session? Thank you.
Well, I don't know about more professional, Jannine. You're certainly full of energy and enthusiasm for what we're talking about today. You've done a fantastic job of putting it all together. And I must say that the response from the people listening and watching, taking part, has been absolutely huge. And the questions that have come in vary dramatically in who they're for and what they want to know. And let's start quite gently, I think, and go maybe back to Anne, who we heard from quite early. Anne, I'm hoping that you're there with us. We had somebody, Emma, who's been a very interested attendee all the way through, and she asks what we can do to protect females in sport, not just once they're involved and getting them to the starting line, but once they're there, how do we protect them?
You know, I think, you know, first of all, to protect women in sport, we have to think of safe spaces, having a safe place where, or a safe space where the women can come play sport. You know, women can come and sort of like go and change freely. So that is very important. But also another thing is educating our, you know, our coaches or people who run sport facilities or sport venues to know what kind of provision or how to adapt the facilities to make sure that there's actually something that women will be able to use. I know I've gone to places where girls or women will change in their cars or in their boots just because the facilities are not suitable, you know, for women. So I think making the spaces safe, making the spaces accessible, that will be one of them. But also education to, you know, to the coaches, the trainers, how to integrate the girls or the women. That would be very important.
Yeah, I mean, see, it's not just about the getting women involved, is it? As you speak there so rightly, it's about the facilities and the space for them once they're in that environment, not just in terms of the men, boys, women, girls, but like you say, about changing spaces and making sure that that's available. I've got a question here as well. This is quite a big question, actually, and I'd like maybe a short answer from you, Lanai, and then also maybe from Kathleen's perspective, because Paul from the Isle of Wight has daughters and granddaughters, and what he wants to know is maybe what are some of the biggest prejudices that they may be going to have to overcome and how he can help them.
I think for your granddaughters and daughters and for all women, just again trying to support them in any endeavour they choose to go down. and proving to them that there are safe men that will respect you, and encouraging them to dream as big as they want to, and being a figure that is there to protect them as well, and not in a way where they feel that they need a man to protect them, but in a way where they know that they have a safe man that is a role model for other men of how to be, and yeah, just encouraging them to kind of strive high and let nothing stop them. But yeah.
Yeah, I suppose to really echo what Lana has been saying, I think you don't necessarily need to shield women and girls from the harsh realities of living within a patriarchal society on a global level. I mean, they're intelligent enough to recognise that and understand it. But I'd say the fact that you're asking that question is very encouraging. And we have spoken at length today about all of the issues that women and girls specifically face, and I'd say continue to educate yourself really, and encourage your daughters, your granddaughters to educate themselves, and also see themselves as powerful, see themselves as change agents. Yes, there are endemic levels of male violence against women. Yes, there is a huge authority gap. So a woman's voice is going to be it's more likely to be dismissed than that of a man. I've got quite a few books here. I'll just flash them up quickly that you might want to read, particularly this one, so the authority gap. So I suppose that's more of a sociocultural explanation of why people believe women less and think that women's voices are less valid. And yeah, like Lana was saying, challenge the women in your life, but also kind of so say there hasn't been a female Secretary General of the United Nations, is it going to be you? But I would say also there are sexist assumptions about the kind of careers that both men and women should aspire to, but leaving that to one side, and again illuminate all of the opportunities that are available to everyone, irrespective of gender identity within the world. So that might be as simple as taking your granddaughters to the Museum of Natural History and talking to them in very real terms about, so in the future, when you're a scientist or when you study science, you can sort of use the knowledge that you've gathered today. So yeah, I think they will face prejudices and they will experience misogyny, and there's no point denying or sugarcoating that really. But equally, I think attitudes are slowly changing and they need to continue to change, and emphasising that yourself. And also I'd say not being afraid to be challenged. We all have, it's been touched on by Lanai, we all have levels of internalised misogyny, and we're all growing up against a sexist backdrop that demeans women in a number of different ways. So if your daughters and granddaughters are saying to you, well, that was a bit sexist, or have you thought about this? I mean, recently I had to challenge my own father about, he had misconceptions around women falsely reporting rape. And I said, well, no, Dad, you're wrong, because rape is not misreported than more than any other crime. And indeed, more rapes need to be reported, and the conviction rates for rape need to be dramatically increased. So yeah, be open to challenge from the women in your life, and be open to challenge by yourself. We've touched on the importance of education, so keep reading, keep learning, and keep encouraging everybody around you to do the same thing in order to empower themselves and empower women and girls.
Well, two fantastic answers. Thank you very much, and very informative as well. Elizabeth, just coming over to you for a moment. Somebody that's been listening, Carol, says people with different gender identities face different challenges in life. And how does this initiative fit in with that?
You know, that is an excellent question, and it very much is connected to Rotary's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion initiative. And the Empowering Girls initiative is also very closely connected to that. So it does tie in that Empowering Girls is really an equity initiative within Rotary, as is respect and acknowledgement and inclusion of the entire spectrum of identity. So I would say in that way, it is very much aligned, just as empowering girls is aligned with DEI.
No, very much so. And do you know, this is something which I didn't think of firstly. And Hasina, I'd like to put this to you. We've got Rima from Calcutta, you know, talk about a span of people listening and taking part today. She asks, how can we help educate parents who are unwilling to listen and understand their girls? You know, when you've got parents that maybe have a different way of looking at the world from their daughters, how do you get them to buy into their girls?
That is also an excellent question. And that's where I think that the partnering that has been discussed today and is so evident in the speakers that are represented, partnering with organizations within our communities who can assist with opening up that dialogue with parents. It is critical because you can educate a girl, but if she is still dealing with the obstacles or the barriers that are faced within, you know, the orientation of her family, that her family should be with her and it should not be yet another obstacle. And I think that our partnering organizations are so essential in working with us to change those attitudes.
And Hasina, what would maybe you say to that when you've maybe got parents that see the world slightly differently from the next generation?
I think this is a very relevant question to what presently we as Afghan women are advocating for, because in the last 2 decades, not only the parents, but even the unaware communities understood the value of education. Because what happened was that their family status was so weak and down that they even never thought that education can be a base to entering a new era of life. I will give you many examples. As a women minister, as a women activist, I have almost traveled to each province of my country, in each district of my country. There were men when I went at the first, like in 10 years back, 15 years back, when I went to meet them, they would cover their faces from me because they thought I was not a good woman, that I did not stay home and bring children, but I went to their houses and communities and talked to them to let their daughters go to school. But believe me, after 10 years, like in 2005, in 2010, the same people wanted to invest on their daughter-in-laws. They would send their daughter-in-laws to school. The mother-in-law would say that I will look after my grandchildren, you go to school. She would go to school, and then the daughter-in-law would be either a nurse, a teacher, a clerk. So what happened is that the education basis which brought empowerment was economic empowerment. So it was not the whole male side of the family who are all the time lying and sleeping. Rather, it was a woman, a girl, maybe a teenage girl, an underage girl who was forcibly married. She went to school, she stood, she was pregnant, she did the child delivery, and after that, she equivalently worked in a hospital or in a clinic or in a school. So this is how it changed. It got, like you can say, in the last 2 decades, 10 to 20 to 30% of mindsets change. They understood the value of education. That is why I said that with education, the men of quality. I belong to a spiritual family. I was the first girl in my family who went to formal school. Now, after me, all the girls went to school. I was not allowed to keep in touch with my classmates who had gone to scholarships to Canada and Australia. But today, my nieces, nephews, cousins, they are going for bachelor's and master's to the distance places. So it is the one who has to take a step. And then who helped me with that? My father, my husband, and my brothers. They are the men of quality. So that is why now that I have a son, when my daughters have periods, then I tell my son that let them rest, you work, because this is an extra pressure on them. And when the women in my family see that I say, they do like this. Oh, shame on you, you are telling your son to do this? I say, no, we have to educate them. Unless we don't educate our sons, they will never understand our pain. So that is why we need a lot to talk. And education is not only a matter of inside the family, because our family is our smaller nations. So if we have an established family, definitely the established family will take us to an established big country, which is nation, and then the bigger nation, which is the globe. So step by step, we really have to understand and make their mindset. Those men who were covering their faces 15 years back from me, when they saw that I became a minister and they were coming to me to solve the issues of their sons and daughters, then they felt proud. And they were telling their daughters, be like Hasina, go to school, study. So that is why we really have to show role models, positive role models. It is very easy, Steve, to move as an individual. Earlier I said, but it's very challenging, and the impact shows later when you move with a collective. Today, everyone asks me, Hasina, what are the awards which you have given? I'm saying them, how many lists of families should I give you? My awards are all those families who are investing on their daughters. My awards are all those families who are giving confidence to their families. So we really need to talk, show role models based on the local initiatives, so that they do not think that we are bringing agendas out of aliens. Thank you.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And Jannine, just bringing it a little bit closer to home now, and I think I'll finish up with this as maybe the last question. Thank you, everybody. And this is just a quick one from Caroline in Hucknall. And she asks, how can secondary schools become involved in the Empowering Girls programme?
Absolutely, Steve. Thanks very much. And yes, we do need to wrap up. There are lots of different ways. Reach out to your local Rotary Club, see what they're doing, contact me. I can put you in touch with different initiatives. We've seen today, for instance, the Be Lads initiative. Watch out. I think they're going to be doing something for the older key stages. There's lots of ways in doing it. Start an Interact club in your own school, in the schools. Start an Interact club in your communities. There's loads and loads of different ways of getting involved. But what you've got to do is start somewhere. So take that first action. So, you know, I hope everybody today is going to take that first action. So thanks, Steve. I think we need to hand back to you to wind it up. Thank you all so much.
Absolutely, and thank you. And as Jannine says there, I'm just going to say a few closing words and thank firstly the panel now. There's been so many questions there, and I know that there's plenty more that haven't been answered, but Jannine will get back to you with those answers shortly. Lots for us to digest. And remember, you can catch up with it all on YouTube, and you're also going to get follow-up emails, etc. as well. Tons and tons to take away. I've certainly learned a lot from everybody involved, and I'm sure you've learned as well. And it's not just about learning, it's about the actions that you're going to take after learning. That leaves me just to say thank you to all the speakers, the technical team behind the scenes, and obviously everybody that has joined in today and sat through listening with us. There's no point in us speaking if there's nobody there to listen and learn. Been a real engaging programme, and everyone working together and individually, taking power and doing everything they can to make a difference and empower girls across the globe.